And now guys, as promised, let's head down to the main topic of the episode. Welcome to Olympian Flexers. Time to talk about the Olympics. First of all, a little bit of history. Ladies and gents, a short view back to the past. So, the Olympic Games, where did that come from? It started with the ancient Olympic Games, or Olympiakoi Agores in Greek, a series of athletic competitions among representatives of city-states, and were one of the Pan-Hellenic Games of ancient Greece. Should I remind you the name of the city-states? Athens, Sparta, of course the two main rivals of the era, then Olympia, Elis, Delphi, Nemea, Corinthia, Isthmia, Sicyon. Those were the biggest. Other than the Olympic Games, the other Pan-Hellenic Games were the Pythian Games in honor of god Apollo in Delphi, the Nemean Games in honor of Zeus and Heracles in Nemea in Corinthia, and the Isthmian Games in honor of Poseidon in Isthmia and Sicyon, when Olympic Games were in honor of Zeus in Olympia and Elis. The Olympic Games were held in honor of Zeus, and the Greeks gave them a mythological origin. The originating Olympic Games are traditionally dated to 776 before Christ, a long time ago. The games were held every 4 years, or a period of time that we call Olympiad, which is still something in place to this day, which became a unit of time in historical chronologies. They continued to be celebrated when Greece came under Roman rule, 2nd century before Christ. Their last recorded celebration was in 393 under the Emperor Theodosius I, but archaeological evidence indicates though that some games were still held after this date. The games likely came to an end under Theodosius II, possibly in connection with a fire that burned down the temple of the Olympian Zeus during his reign. This temple is notably located a few kilometers down from the Acropolis, where the Parthenon is located. And yeah, during the celebration of the games, the Ekecheria, an Olympic truce, was announced so that athletes and religious pilgrims could travel from their cities to the games in safety during war times between state cities. Was like a rule to respect during these games. The prizes for the victors were olive leaf, wreaths, or crowns, like the one I'm wearing in the cover. The games became a political tool used by city-states to assert dominance over their rivals. Politicians would announce political alliance at the games, and in times of war, priests would offer sacrifices to the gods for victory. The games were also used to help spread Hellenistic culture throughout the Mediterranean area. The Olympics also featured religious celebrations. The statue of Zeus at Olympia was counted as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Sculptors and poets would congregate each Olympiad to display their works of art to would-be patrons. The ancient Olympics had fewer events than the modern games, and only freeborn Greek men were allowed to participate, although there were victorious women triad owners, as long as they met the entrance criteria. Athletes from many Greek city-states and kingdom were allowed to participate. The games were always held at Olympia rather than moving between different locations, as is practiced with the modern Olympic Games-ish. There are some exceptions though. Victors at the Olympics were honored, and their feats chronicled for future generations. To the ancient Greeks, it was important to root the Olympic Games in mythology. During the time of the ancient games, their origins were attributed to the gods, and accompanying legends persisted as to who actually was responsible for the genesis of the games. These origin traditions have become nearly impossible to untangle, yet a chronology and patterns have arisen that help people understand the story behind the games. The patterns that emerged from this myth are that the Greeks believed the games had their roots in religion, that athletic competition was tied to worship of the gods, and the revival of the ancient games was intended to bring peace, harmony, and a return to the origins of Greek life. The Olympic Games were held to be one of the 2 central rituals in ancient Greece, the other being much older religious festival, the Eleusinian Mysteries. So even though ancient Egyptians and Mesopotamians depicted athletic scenes in tombs of kings and their nobles, they did not however hold regular competitions, and those events that occurred were probably the preserve of kings and upper classes. Minoans culture held gymnastics in high esteem, with bull leaping, tumbling, running, wrestling, and boxing shown on their frescoes. The Mycenaeans adopted Minoan games and also raised triads in religious or funerary ceremonies. Homer's heroes participate in athletic competitions to honor the dead. In the Iliad story, there are chariot races, boxing, wrestling, a foot race, as well as fencing, archery, and spear throwing. The Odyssey adds to this a long jump and discus throw. The first official games were reckoned by Aristotle the dates of the first Olympics to be in 776 before Christ, a date largely accepted by most, though not all, subsequent ancient historians. It is still the traditionally given date, and archaeological finds confirm approximately the Olympics starting at or soon after this time. Archaeology suggests that major games at Olympia arose not in 776 but probably around 700. Christensen's important work on the Olympic victor lists shows that victors' names and details were unreliable until the 6th century. Moreover, scholars have demythologized ancient Olympia and other famous games by noting excessive violence, ethnic and gender chauvinism, corruption, commercialization, and political propaganda. Olympia was a sanctuary, but it was within. A less independent state administered it, and while the aliens managed the games well, there sometimes was bias and interference. Also, despite modern illusions, the famous Olympic truce only mandated safe passage for visitors. It did not, though, stop all wars in Greece or even at Olympia back at the time. The historian Ephorus, who lived in the 4th century before Christ, is one potential candidate for establishing the use of Olympiads to count years, although credits for codifying this particular approach usually falls to Hippias of Elis, the Eratosthenes, or even Timaeus, whom Eratosthenes may have imitated. The Olympic Games were held at 4-year intervals, and later the ancient historians' method of counting the years even referred to these games, using Olympiad, 4 years gap, for the period between two games. Previously, the local dating systems of the Greek states were used. They continued to be used by everyone except the historians, which led to confusion when trying to determine dates. For example, Diodorus states that there was a solar eclipse in the 3rd year of the 113th Olympiad, which must be the eclipse of 316 before Christ. This gives a date of midsummer 765 before Christ for the 1st year of the first Olympiad. Nevertheless, there is a disagreement among scholars as to when the games began. According to the later Greek traveler Pausanias, who wrote in 175 AD, the only competition held at first was the stadion, a race over about 190 meters, or 620 feet, one-way race on foot. The word stadium is derived from this event, stadion. Several groups fought over control of the sanctuary at Olympia, which was for sure a strategic place at that time, and hence the games for prestige and political advantage. Pausanias later writes that in 668 before Christ, Phaedon of Argos was commissioned by the town of Pisa to capture the sanctuary from the town of Elis, which he did, and then personally controlled the games for that year. The next year, Elis regained control. In the first 200 years of the game's existence, they only had regional religious importance. Only Greeks in proximity to Olympia competed in these early games. This is evidenced by the dominance of the Peloponnesian athletes from the Peloponnese in victors' roles. Greek sports also derived its origins from the concept that physical energy was being expended in a ritualistic manner, in which Paleolithic age hunting practices were turned into a more socially and glamorized function, thus becoming sports. The Greeks, in particular, were unique in the regard that their competitions were often held in grand facilities with prizes and nudity. That was a thing at the time that stressed the Greek idealisms of training one's body to be as fit as their mind. It is this ideology and athletic exceptionalism that resulted in theories claiming the Greeks were the inventors of sports, so literally, sport in general. Over time, the Olympic Games gained increasing recognition and became part of the Pan-Hellenic Games I told you about before. 4 separate games held at 2 or 4 year intervals, but arranged so that there was at least one set of games every year. The other Pan-Hellenic Games were the Pythian, Nemean, and Isthmian Games, though the Olympic Games were considered the most prestigious. Then came an imperial period when the Roman conquered Greece, with guys like General Sulla, who robbed Olympia, celebration of victories after Mithridates. The Augustan period, with Emperor Augustus, who underwent a revival for his games before he came to full power. His right-hand man, Marcus Agrippa, restored the damaged temple of Zeus in 12 before Christ. And in this period, Augustus asked King Herod of Judea to subsidize the games. After Augustus was declared the god by the Senate after his death, a statue of his likeness was commissioned at Olympia. Subsequent divine emperors also had statues erected within the sacred altis. The stadium was renovated at his command, and Greek athletics in general was subsidized. Then came the Nero era, occurred under the rule of Nero. There was a Renaissance period then, in the first half of the 2nd century, with Philhellenic emperors Hadrian and Antoninus Pius, who oversaw a new and successful phase in the history of the games. The Olympics attracted then a great number of spectators and competitors, and the victor's fame spread across all the Roman Empire. And remember, at the time the Roman Empire wasn't just about Italy and Greece, it was all about Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, everything, and even North Africa, Minor Asia, many things. The Roman Empire was one of the greatest in the history of humanity. At that time, Roman Empire was at its peak. This Renaissance era endured for most of the 2nd century. Once again, philosophers, orators, artists, religious proselytizers, singers, and all kinds of performers went to the festival of Zeus. Then, unfortunately, came the decline in the 3rd century, decline in the popularity of the game, the victory list of Africanus. Sextus Iulius Africanus, who was a Christian traveler and historian of the late 2nd and early 3rd centuries. His victory ends at the Olympiad of 217, and no surviving texts of subsequent authors mention any new Olympic victors. Excavated inscriptions show the games continued, however, until recently the last securely datable winner was a guy named Publius Asclepiades of Corinth, who won the pentathlon in 241. In 1994, a bronze plaque was found inscribed with victors of the competitive events hailing from the mainland in Asia Minor, proof that an international Olympic Games continued until at least 385. The Games continued past 385, so by which time flooding and earthquakes had damaged the buildings and invasions by barbarians had reached Olympia. The last recorded games were held under Theodosius I in 393, but archaeological evidence indicates that some games were still held after that date. To remind you what Olympia is that state city, which lies in the valley of the Alpheus River, romanized as Alpheus now, located in the western part of the Peloponnese, today around 18 kilometers away from the Ionian Sea, but perhaps in antiquity half that distance. The Altis, as the sanctuary, was originally known as an irregular quadrangular area more than 180 meters on each side and walled except to the north where it was bounded by the Mount Kronos. It consisted of a somewhat disordered arrangement of buildings, the most important of which are the Temple of Hera, the Temple of Zeus, the Pelopion, and the area of the Great Altar of Zeus, where the largest sacrifices were made. The name Altis was derived from corruption of the alien word also meaning the grove, because the area was wooded, olive and plane trees in particular. Uninhabited throughout the year, when the games were held, the site became over-congested. There were no permanent living structures for spectators, who, rich or poor, made do with tents. Ancient visitors recalled being plagued by summer heats and flies, such a problem that sacrifices were made to Zeus, averter of flies. The site's water supply and sanitation were finally improved after nearly 1,000 years by the mid-2nd century AD, and we still complain about our Western government's administration service. And pun intended, I'm sure that France is able to beat that record when you ask for a construction permit when you want to build a house. No comment on this one. So in the culture, the ancient Olympics were as much a religious festival as an athletic event. The games were held in honor of the Greek god Zeus, and on the middle day of the games, 100 oxen would be sacrificed to him. Over time, Olympia, the site of the games, became a central spot for the worship of the head of the Greek pantheon, and a temple, built by the Greek architect named Libon, was erected on the mountain top. The temple was one of the largest Doric temples in Greece. The sculptor Phidias created a statue of Zeus made of gold and ivory. It stood 42 feet tall, or 13 meters if you want. It was placed on the throne in the temple. The statue became one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Artistic expression was a major part of the games. Sculptors, poets, painters, and other artisans would come to the games to display their works in what became an artistic competition. Poets would be commissioned to write poems in praise of the Olympic victors. Such victory songs or epitaphiums were passed on from generation to generation, and many of them have lasted far longer than any other honor made for the same purpose. And so you will tell me, what were the disciplines of the games back in the day, apart from running? What were we doing in the ancient Olympic Games? Well, in 20 identified events during this antique era, starting with the first Olympiad in 776 before Christ, where stadion single foot race was introduced. Then came the 14th Olympiad in 724 before Christ, where Diolos double stadion race, back and forth race was introduced. Then the long distance race during the 15th Olympiad in 720 before Christ. This long distance race was named the Dolikos. Then came the 18th Olympiad in 708 before Christ, where pentathlon, the ancient pentathlon, was introduced alongside wrestling. So the ancient Olympics pentathlon was an athletic contest obviously featured at the ancient Olympic Games, but also all the Pan-Hellenic Games of ancient Greece. The name derives from Greece, combining the words pente, which means 5 in Greek, and athlon for competition in Greek. So 5 events were contested over one day, starting with the stadion, the short foot race, followed by the javelin throw, discus throw, long jump, and ending with wrestling. Another thing with the long jump from this era is that you jumped with weights attached to your feet, so it was way harder to get a good score back in the day, because now you're just free to go with your trainers, basically. Ancient Olympics were something, yeah. What else? Pigmatia, or boxing in Greek, was introduced in 688 before Christ during the 23rd Olympiad. The 25th Olympiad in 680 before Christ introduced the 4-horse chariot race, the tetripon. This is definitely something I would do if I was born during this era and if I was able to participate in this ancient Olympic Games. You know, horse eventing, horse chariot race and everything in the ancient Greek era and Roman Empire era were literally the ancestors of motorsports. If the Industrial Revolution never happened, we would never know what we know today with internal combustion engines, cars, bikes, etc. If these vehicles never existed, I think I probably would be passionate about horses. I mean, I like horses, but not at the same point that I love cars and bikes and motorsports, of course. So yeah. Then came the 33rd Olympiad in 648 before Christ with horse races named Keles and the Penkration. The Penkration was an empty-hand submission sport with a few rules where athletes use boxing and wrestling techniques, but also others such as kicking, holds, joint locks, and chokes on the ground. It's like WWE but with empty-hand submission, so something a little more difficult and real, obviously. The simple horse race, so literally like the horse race that we still know to this day when you make some bets, especially famous in France here. And then in 632 before Christ, during the 32nd Olympiad were introduced the boys, state and wrestling. So the first big ring combat disciplines came out that year. The 38th Olympiad in 628 before Christ introduced the boys pentathlon, discontinued same year. The 41st Olympiad in 616 before Christ introduced boys boxing, and we knew the creation of the hoplite race, hoplitodromos, so it was like a foot race only reserved to hoplites. To remind you, hoplites were the security guards of and soldiers of the city-state of Athens, the direct rivals of the Spartans from Sparta. So the hoplite race was introduced in the 65th Olympiad in 520 before Christ, and the hoplite participants were obliged to run with their military gear on, so with their helmets, their shields. I don't remember if they were running with the swords, but definitely with their shields and helmets, according to the frescoes we see on the different antique vases. I swear to God, these guys were on the 999 level every time. Performance was something else, defined by some other standards back in the day. Lightweight wasn't a thing, and I guess this is how you flex like an Olympian, right? The 70th Olympiad in 500 before Christ introduced the mule cart race, or name in Greek, apene. The 71st Olympiad in 496 before Christ introduced the mare horse race, or kalpe. The 84th Olympiad in 444 before Christ, so the mule cart race apene and mare horse race kalpe both discontinued. The 93rd Olympiad in 408 before Christ introduced the 2-horse chariot race named Synoris. The 96th Olympiad in 396 before Christ introduced the competitions for heralds and trumpeters, so a music competition basically. The winners were chosen by the clarity of the initiation of the eligibility, so kind of like a jury of this era, let's say. So something much more fun to bring more festivity to these games, to these harsh competitions. Then, during the 99th Olympiad in 384 before Christ, was introduced the tetripon for horse of a 1-year-old. The 128th Olympiad in 268 before Christ introduced the chariot for horse over 1 year. And then the 131st Olympiad in 256 before Christ was introduced the race for horses older than 1 year, so they have to be older than 1 year in horse aging scale requirements. So they were already introducing some, let's say, technical rules, some like kind of categories. If you took a young horse younger than 1 horse year, you would be cheating basically, I suppose. And to finish, the last identified ancient game was the 145th Olympiad in 200 before Christ, where the Pankration for boys was introduced. So this is all the categories you could see, all the disciplines, all the sports you could see during these games. So Stadion, Diolos, long distance race, Dolikos, pentathlon, wrestling, boxing, pigmacha, 4-horse chariot race, tetripon, horse race, and Pankration, horse race named Keles, boys state and wrestling, boys pentathlon, boys boxing, hoplite race, mule cart race, apene, hoplite race oplitodromos, mule cart race apene, mare horse race, calpe, 2-horse chariot race, sinoris, competition for heralds and trumpeters, tetripon for horse over 1 year, chariot for horse over 1 year, race for horses older than 1 year, Pankration for boys. So yeah, apparently starting with just a single foot race, the program gradually increased to 23 contests, although no more than 20 featured at any one Olympiad. Participation in most events was limited to male athletes, except for women who were allowed to take part by entering horses in the equestrian events. Youth events are recorded as starting in 632 before Christ. Our knowledge of how the events were performed primarily derives from paintings of athletes found on many vases, particularly those of the archaic and classical periods. Competitors had access to 2 gymnasiums for training purposes, the Xystos for the runners and pentathletes, and the Tetragono for the wrestlers and boxers. I suggest that the Tetragono was the ancestor of the actual UFC octagon we see now these days. For most of its history, Olympic events were performed in the nude. Couldn't be me. Pausanias says that the first naked runner was Orsippus, winner of the Stadion race in 720 before Christ, who simply lost his garment on purpose because running without it was easier. I'm telling you guys, they definitely lived in another period. How can we, in 2023 after Christ, think like that? Anyway, the 5th century before Christ, historian Thucydides credits the Spartans with introducing the custom of publicly stripping and anointing themselves with oil in their gymnastic exercises to flex like an Olympian, to look good, you know what I'm saying? Formerly, even in the Olympic contests, the athletes contended with war belts across their middles, and it is but a few years since that practice ceased. Who are the stars of this era? Alright, so famous athletes in running, we could mention Koroibos of Elis in Stadion, traditionally declared as the first Olympic champion ever in history. Shout out to you, Koroibos of Elis. Orsippus in Diolos, the first one to complete naked. Yeah, this is not an achievement I would be proud about. Leonidas of Rhodes in Stadion, Diolos and Oplitodromos. Jonis of Sparta, 3-time Stadium Diolos winner and champion jumper. Astylos of Croton in Stadion Diolos and Oplitodromos. Alexander the First of Macedon in Stadion, and not Alexander the Great. It's Alexander the First of Macedon, a guy known with the title of Philhellene, the ruler of the ancient kingdom of Macedon from 498 before Christ until his death in 454 before Christ. In combat were known guys like Arition in Pankratias died while successfully defending his championship in the 54th Olympiad in 664 before Christ. Would you die to defend an Olympic championship? Couldn't be me. Not at this point. Arition, described as the most famous of all Pankratiasts of history. Then Milo of Croton in wrestling, legendary 6-time victor. Once as youth, the rest in the men's events, because you had, back in the day, 2 different categories, youth category and men's event categories. Who else? Diagoras of Rhodes in boxing in the 79th Olympiad in 464 before Christ. His sons also were famous, Akusilaos and Damagetos in boxing and Pankration. Timasitheos of Croton in wrestling. Theagenes of Thassos, boxer, Pankratiast, and runner. Sostratus of Sicyon, Pankratiast, notorious for his finger-breaking technique. Dioxippus, Pankratiast, ground champion by default in 336 before Christ, when no other Pankratiast dared to compete. Such a victory was called akoniti, literally without getting dusted in Greek, and remains the only one ever recorded in the Olympics in this discipline. Veni Vidi Vici or nah? Let me know in the comments. Varastatis in boxing, prince and future king of Armenia, less known ancient Olympic victor in boxing during the 291st Olympic Games in the 4th century. And in equestrian, my truly favorite disciplines if motorsports never existed. So, well known, Siniska of Sparta, owner of a 4-horse chariot, first woman to be listed as an Olympic victor. Pherenikos, the most famous racehorse in antiquity in 470 before Christ. So Pherenikos might have surely inspired Enzo Ferrari's friend, this guy who was a pilot during World War I, a highly skilled fighter pilot in the Italian Air Force, and who perished, unfortunately, during one of his air battles. A guy who had the famous Cavallino Rampante painted on his plane as his personal logo, which inspired then Enzo Ferrari to honor a promise he made to his friend's mother to put his personal logo on all his cars, and is the reason why we find except on the Dino 246 GT, in order to pay tribute to his son Gino Ferrari, gone too soon, unfortunately. A Cavallino Rampante on every side of any Ferrari's cars, as well as the front and the back, considered as monograms as well. It would be a beautiful story if all of these events were linked in between, right? So back to the athletes. Who else do we have? Tiberius, steerer of a 4-horse chariot, and Nero, a steerer of a 10-horse chariot. How can you handle a 10-horse chariot, bro? 5 horse on one side, 5 horse on the other side, bro. How wide could that shit be? Come on, man. At this time, they were better built wide open tracks for these events, because otherwise you would be blocked. You could only barely pass one-ish chariot. How did that work? Come on. And in other categories, like in musical events, a guy named Herodotus of Megara, a 10-time trumpet champion. I bet he should have composed some dope-ass music back in the day. He was surely turning the ancient Greece society up with these surely fire concerts, I suppose, or I don't know, mixtapes maybe. Anyway, this was the beautiful history of the ancient Olympic Games. And so, what happened then? Well, after this era, let's fast forward through time. The year is now 1894. The world is now enjoying a flourishing period thanks to the global industrial revolution, literally redefining most of the world's population's way of life. We are seeing a socio-economical, monetary, financial, technological, ideological, and juristic boom in society, in which many of its geniuses are writing their own success stories with amazing projects. And among all these folks, there's one guy in particular we'll talk about. French Baron Pierre de Coubertin, one of the founders of the modern Olympic Games, wanted to fully imitate the ancient Olympics in every way, including in his vision was an artistic competition modeled on the ancient Olympics and held every 4 years during the celebration of the Olympic Games. Inspired by the ancient Olympic Games from Olympia, he decided to found the International Olympic Committee IOC, or CIO in French, Comité International Olympique. The IOC is the governing body of the Olympic movement, which encompasses all entities and individuals involved in the Olympic Games, with the Olympic Charter defining its structure and authority. One of its main rules is that one of the official Olympic languages is French, because it was created by a Frenchman, the French Baron Pierre de Coubertin himself. English as well, obviously the international language defined by default by the Western world. And because it was Greek at the true beginning of the whole Olympics history, Greek is also an official language of the Olympics. His desire came to fruition the first modern Olympic Games in history, held in Athens in 1896, where the main place of the competition was the Panathinaik Stadium of Athens, a one-of-a-kind ancient Greek-style Olympic stadium built to pay tribute to the ancient Olympic Games from the golden era of this prestigious Gone civilization, and also where I was during my stay in Greece, and where you can see me on the cover of this episode as well. Really beautiful place, by the way. The evolution of the Olympic movement then during the 20th and 21st centuries has resulted in several changes to the Olympic Games. Some of these adjustments include the creation of the Winter Olympics, with the first edition held in 1924 in Chamonix, France, for snow and ice sports mainly, the Paralympic Games in 1960 for the summer and in 1976 for the winter for athletes with disabilities, the Youth Olympic Games in 2010 for summer and 2012 for winter for athletes aged from 14 to 18 years old, the 5 Continental Games, Pan American, African, Asian, European and Pacific Games, respectively in 1951, 1963, 1965 and 2015, and the World Games in 1981 for sports that are not contested in the Olympic Games. The IOC also endorses the Deaflympics and the Special Olympics, respectively created in 1924 and 2019 for the summer and winter Deaflympics, and in 1968 for the Special Games. Deaflympics are Olympic Games for deaf athletes who compete at an elite level. Special Olympics is the world's largest sports organization for children and adults with intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities, providing year-round training and activities to 5 million participants and unified sports partners in 172 countries. The IOC has needed to adapt to a variety of economic, political, and technological advancements, like it used to be the case back in the ancient Olympic Games. The abuse of amateur rules by the Eastern Bloc nations prompted the IOC to shift away from pure amateurism, as envisioned by Coubertin, to the acceptance of professional athletes participating in the Games. The growing importance of mass media has created the issue of corporate sponsorship and general commercialization of the Games. World wars led to the cancellations of the 1916, 1940 and 1944 Olympics, large-scale boycotts during the Cold War, limited participations in the 1980 and 1984 Olympics, and the 2020 Olympics were postponed until 2021 as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Olympic movement consists of international sports federations, national Olympic committees or NOCs, and organizing committees for each specific Olympic Games. As the decision-making body, the IOC is responsible for choosing the host city for each Games and organizes and funds the Games according to the Olympic Charter. The IOC also determines the Olympic program consisting of the sports to be contested at the Games. There are several Olympic rituals and symbols such as the Olympic flag and torch, as well as the opening and closing ceremonies. Really beautiful to watch, by the way. Over 14,000 athletes competed at the 2016 Summer Olympics and 2018 Winter Olympics combined in 35 different sports and over 400 events, to give you some stats. The first, second and third place finishers in each event receive Olympic medals, gold for the first place, silver for the second and bronze respectively for the third place. The Games have grown so much that nearly every nation is now represented. Colonies and overseas territories are allowed to field their own teams. This growth has created numerous challenges and controversies, including by the time boycotts, doping, bribery, and terrorism. Every 2 years, the Olympics and its media exposure provide athletes with the chance to attain national and sometimes international fame. The Games also provide an opportunity for the host city and country to showcase themselves to the world. And now, the modern Olympic Games or Olympics are the leading international sporting events featuring summer and winter sports competitions in which thousands of athletes from around the world participate in a variety of competitions. These are considered the world's foremost sports competition, with more than 200 teams representing sovereign states and territories participating. So now, they are still held every 4 years, every Olympiad we would say, and since 1994 have alternated between the Summer and Winter Olympics every 2 years period. So by the time we could have seen that politically, Pierre de Coubertin vision wanted the Games to be more diverse, let's say kind of inclusive for any kind of certified world-class athletes who could participate. And it came out obviously with symbols where we can recognize the Olympic Games or obviously the Olympic rings. The Olympic movement uses symbols to represent the ideals embodied in the Olympic Charter. The Olympic symbol, better known as the Olympic rings, consists of 5 intertwined rings and represents the unity of the 5 inhabited continents such as Africa, the Americas, North and South, and Central, considered as one continent though, Asia, Europe, and Oceania. The colored version of the rings, blue, yellow, black, green and red, over white field forms the Olympic flag. These colors were chosen because every nation had at least one of them on its national flag. The flag was adopted in 1914 but flown for the first time only at the 1920 Summer Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium. It has since been hosted during each celebration of the Games. The Olympic motto, Citius, Altius, Fortius, Latin expression meaning faster, higher, stronger, was proposed by Pierre de Coubertin in 1894 and has been official since 1924. The motto was coined by Coubertin's friend, the Dominican priest Henri Didon, OP, for a Paris Youth gathering in 1891. Coubertin's Olympic ideals are expressed in the Olympic Creed, saying, "The most important thing in the Olympic Games is not to win but to take part, just as the most important thing in life is not the triumph but the struggle. The essential thing is not to have conquered but to have fought well." Months before each Games, the Olympic flame is lit at the Temple of Hera in Olympia in a ceremony that reflects ancient Greek rituals. Kind of a little shout out to the past. That's a cool thing, obviously. A female performer acting as a priestess, joined by 10 female performers as Vestal virgins, ignites a torch by placing it inside a parabolic mirror, which focuses the sun's rays. She then lights the torch of the first relay bearer, who also is a Greek athlete, thus initiating the Olympic torch relay that will carry the flame to the host city's Olympic Stadium, where it plays an important role in the opening ceremony. Though the flame has been an Olympic symbol since 1928, the torch relay was only introduced at the 1936 Summer Games to promote the Third Reich. Kinda controversial right here. Anyway, the Olympic mascot, an animal or human figure representing the cultural heritage of the host country, was introduced in 1968. It has played an important part of the game's identity promotion since the 1980 Summer Olympics, when the Soviet bear cub Misha reached international stardom. The mascot of the Summer Olympics in London was named Wenlock after the town of Much Wenlock in Shropshire. Much Wenlock still hosts the Wenlock Olympian Games, which were an inspiration to Pierre de Coubertin for the Olympic Games. So every opening ceremony, as mandated by the Olympic Charter, takes place on Friday and is held prior to the commencement of the sporting events, apart from some group stage football matches, softball games and rowing heats. We'll talk about the newly introduced disciplines after. Most of the rituals for the opening ceremony were established at the 1920 Summer Olympics in Antwerp. The ceremony typically starts with the entrance of the president of the IOC and the representative of the host country, followed by the hoisting of the host country's flag and a performance of its national anthem. The host nation then presents artistic displays of music, singing, dance, and theater representative of its culture. The artistic representations have grown in scale and complexity as successive hosts attempt to provide a ceremony that outlasts its predecessors in terms of memorability. The opening ceremony of the Beijing Games, for example, reportedly costed $100 million, with much of the cost incurred in the artistic segments. And after the artistic portion of the ceremony, the athletes parade into the stadium grouped by nation. Greece is traditionally the first nation to enter into the Olympic Stadium and leads the parade in order to honor the origins of the Olympics. Nations then enter the stadium alphabetically by country according to the host country's chosen language, with the host country's athletes being the last to enter. During the 2004 Summer Olympics, which was hosted in Athens in Greece, the Greek flag entered the stadium first, while the Greek delegation entered last. Beginning with the 2020 Summer Olympics, the succeeding hosts of the respective Olympic Games, summer or winter, will enter immediately before the current hosts in descending order. Speeches are given by the president of the organizing committee, the IOC presidents, and the head of state representative of the host country, formally opening the Games. Finally, the Olympic torch is brought into the stadium and passed on until it reaches the final torch carrier, often successful Olympic athletes from the host nation, who lights the Olympic flame in the stadium's cauldron. Then after the game comes the closing ceremony, which takes place on the Sunday, and after all sporting events have concluded. Flag bearers from each participating country enter the stadium, followed by the athletes, of course, who enter together without any national distinction. 3 national flags are hoisted while the corresponding national anthems are played. The flag of the current host country, the flag of Greece, to honor the birthplace of the Olympic Games, and the flag of the country hosting the next Summer or Winter Olympic Games. The president of the organizing committee and the IOC presidents make their closing speeches. The games are officially closed after that, and the Olympic flame is extinguished. In what is known as the Antwerp ceremony, the current mayor of the city that organized the games transfers a special Olympic flag to the president of the IOC, who then passes it on to the current mayor of the city hosting the next Olympic Games. The next host nation then also briefly introduces itself with artistic displays of dance and theater representative of its culture. As is customary, the last medal presentation of the games is held as part of the closing ceremony. Typically, the marathon medals are presented at the Summer Olympics, while the cross-country skiing mass start medals are awarded at the Winter Olympics. A medal ceremony is of course held after the conclusion of each Olympic event. The winner and the second and the third place competitors or teams stand on top of a 3-tiered rostrum to be awarded their respective medals by a member of the IOC, like said before. After the medals has been received, the national flags of the 3 medalists are raised, while the national anthem of the gold medalist country is played. Like basically any other sporting events in the world. Volunteering citizens of the host country also act as hosts during the medal ceremonies, assisting the officials who present the medals and acting as flag bearers. In the Summer Olympics, each medal ceremony is held at the venue where the event has taken place, but the ceremonies at the Winter Olympics are usually held in a special plaza. So after the ancient Olympic Games, which sport were introduced after that in the modern Olympic Games? Well, this modern program, introduced in 1896 and constantly improved by the introduction of new sporting disciplines, consists of 35 sports now, 30 disciplines, and 408 events. For example, wrestling is a Summer Olympic sport comprising 2 disciplines, Greco-Roman and freestyle. It is further broken down into 14 events for men and 4 events for women, each representing a different weight class. The Summer Olympics program includes 26 sports, while the Winter Olympics program features 15 sports. So things like athletics, of course, swimming also, fencing, and artistic gymnastics are the only summer sports that have never been absent from the Olympic program. These are the basics. Cross-country skiing, figure skating, ice hockey, Nordic combine, ski jumping, and speed skating have been featured at every Winter Olympics program since its inception in 1924. Current Olympic sports like badminton, basketball, and volleyball first appeared on the program as demonstration sports and were later promoted to full Olympic sports. Some sports that were featured in earlier games were later dropped from the program because there are too many on the schedule. It is complicated to schedule everything within 2 weeks of competition. Olympic sports are governed by International Sports Federation, recognized by the IOC as the global supervisor of the sports. There are 35 federations represented at the IOC. There are sports recognized by the IOC that are not included in the Olympic program though. These sports are not considered Olympic sports, but they can be promoted to this status during a program revision that occurs in the first IOC session following a celebration of the Olympic Games. During such revisions, sports can be excluded or included in the program on the basis of a 2/3 majority vote of the members of the IOC. They are recognized sports that have never been on an Olympic program in any capacity, for example, squash. So of course the IOC have a quota of maximum sporting disciplines to schedule within the frame of an Olympic Games event. For example, a little history. In October and November 2004, the IOC established an Olympic Program Commission which was tasked with reviewing the sports on the Olympic program and all non-Olympic recognized sports. The goal was to apply a systematic approach to establishing the Olympic program for each celebration of the Games. The Commission formulated 7 criteria to judge whether a sport should be included on the Olympic program. These criteria are history and tradition of the sports, universality, popularity of the sports in question, image, athletes' health, developments of the international federation that governs the sports, and costs of holding the sports. From this study, 5 recognized sports emerged as candidates for inclusion, for example at the 2012 Summer Olympics, like golf, karate, rugby sevens, roller sports, and squash. These sports were reviewed by the IOC Executive Board and then referred to the General Session in Singapore in July 2005. Of the 5 sports recommended for inclusion, only 2 were selected as finalists, karate and squash. Neither sports attained the required 2/3 votes and consequently they were not promoted to the Olympic program. In October 2009, the IOC voted to instate golf and rugby sevens as Olympic sports for the 2016 and 2020 Summer Olympic Games. The 114th IOC session in 2002 limited the Summer Games program to a maximum of 28 sports, 301 events, and 10,500 athletes. 3 years later, at the 117th IOC session, the first major program revision was performed, which resulted in the exclusion of baseball and softball from the official program of the 2012 London Games. Since there was no agreement in the promotion of 2 other sports, the 2012 program featured just 26 sports. The 2016 and 2020 Games will return to the maximum of 28 sports given the addition of rugby and golf. Olympic Games could also be a good way to acquire different citizenship. There are some rules defined by the IOC concerning this matter. The Olympic Charter requires that an athlete be a national of the country for which they compete. Dual nationals may compete for either country as long as 3 years have passed since the competitor competed for the former country. However, if the NOCs and the international federations involved agree, then the IOC Executive Board may reduce or cancel this period. This waiting period exists only for athletes who previously competed for one nation and want to compete for another. If an athlete gains a new or second nationality, then they do not need to wait any designated amounts of time before participating for the new or second nation. The IOC is only concerned with issues of citizenship and nationality after individual nations have granted citizenship to athletes. And occasionally an athlete will become a citizen of a different country to enable them to compete in the Olympics. This is often because they are attracted to sponsorship deals or training facilities in the other country. All the athletes might be unable to qualify from within their country of birth. In preparation for the 2014 Winter Olympics, for example in Sochi, the Russian Olympic Committee naturalized a South Korean-born short-track speed skater, Han Yoon-soo, and an American-born snowboarder, Vic Wild. The two athletes won 5 gold medals and 1 bronze medal between them at the 2014 Games. Concerning the Games prizes, medals are awarded to the athletes or teams who place first, second and third in each event. As said before, the winners receive gold medals, which were solid gold until 1912, later made of gilded silver, and now gold-plated silver. Every gold medal must contain at least 6 grams of pure gold. They reduce the amounts because obviously for economical reasons. The runners-up are awarded silver medals and the third place athletes receive bronze medals. In events contested by single elimination tournaments, most notably boxing, third place might not be determined, and the losers of both semifinals each receive a bronze medal. That's cool. Sharing's caring. At the 1896 Olympics though, the first modern Olympic Games, only the winner and runner-up of each event received medals. Silver for first, bronze for second, and that's it, with no gold medals awarded. The current 3-medal format was introduced at the 1904 Olympics. From 1948 onwards, athletes placing 4th, 5th and 6th have received certificates, which came to be known officially as Olympic diplomas. From 1984, these have also been awarded to the 7th and 8th place finishers. At the 2004 Summer Olympics in Athens, the gold, silver and bronze medal winners were also presented with olive wreaths. The IOC does not keep statistics of medal won on a national level except for team sports, but the National Olympic Committees and the media record medal statistics and use them as a measure of each nation's success. For a quick fun fact, the olive wreath you see on my head in the cover picture of the episode is made from real olive wreath. I made it myself before a photo shoot at this place at the Panathinaike Stadium of Athens. At the entrance there were some olive trees. I took 2 branches, I joined them behind my head, I made them hold somehow in my hair, and it represented perfectly an original olive wreath crown. Very beautiful on my head, by the way. Do you like it? Let me know in the comments. So, as of the 2020 Games in Tokyo, all of the current 206 National Olympic Committees and 19 obsolete National Olympic Committees have participated in at least one edition of the Summer Olympics since its creation. Competitors from 5 nations, Australia, France, Great Britain, Greece, and Switzerland, have competed in all 28 Summer Olympics. Athletes competing under the Olympic flag, mixed teams, and the refugee team have competed at least at 6 Summer Games. A total of 119 NOCs, so 110 of the current 200 NOCs and 9 obsolete NOCs have participated in at least one edition of the Winter Olympics. Competitors from 14 nations, Austria, Canada, Czech Republic, Finland, France, Great Britain, Hungary, Italy, Norway, Poland, Slovakia, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United States of America have participated in all 23 Winter Games to date. So the host city for an Olympic Games had historically been chosen 7 to 8 years ahead of their celebration, so in huge advance. Beginning with the 2024 and 2028 Olympics selection process in 2017, the IOC has proceeded to announce the winning bid with a longer lead in time in order to provide time for the winning cities' regions to prepare. The process of selections is carried out in 2 phases that span a 2-year period. The prospective host city applies to its country's National Olympic Committee. If more than one city from the same country submits a proposal to its NOC, the National Committee typically holds an internal selection, since only one city per NOC can be represented to the International Olympic Committee (IOC) for consideration. Once the deadline for submission of proposals by the NOCs is reached, the first phase, same application, begins with the applicant cities asked to complete a questionnaire regarding several key criteria related to the organizations of the Olympic Games. In this form, the applicants must give assurances, informations that they will comply with the Olympic Charter and with any other regulations established by the IOC Executive Committee. The evaluation of the field questionnaires by a specialized group provides the IOC with an overview of each applicant's project and their potential to host the Games. On the basis of this technical evaluation, the IOC Executive Board selects the applicants that will proceed to the candidature stage, and once the candidate cities are selected, they must submit to the IOC a bigger and more detailed presentation of their program, let's say, as part of their candidature file. Each city is thoroughly analyzed by an evaluation commission. This commission will also visit the candidate cities, interviewing local officials and inspecting prospective venue sites, and submit a report on its findings 1 month prior to the IOC's final decision. During the interview process, the candidate city must also guarantee that it will be able to fund the Games. After the work on the evaluation commission, a list of candidates is presented to the general session of the IOC, which must assemble in a country that does not have a candidate city in the running. The IOC members gathered in the session have the final vote on the host city. Once elected, the host city bid committee, together with NOC of the respective country, signs a host city contract with the IOC, officially becoming an Olympic host nation and host city. By 2032, the Olympic Games will have been hosted by 47 cities in 23 countries. That's a lot. As of 2021, since the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, South Korea, the Olympics have been held in Asia or Oceania 4 times, a sharp increase compared to the previous 92 years of modern Olympic history. The 2016 Games in Rio de Janeiro were the first Olympics for a South American country. No bids from countries in Africa have succeeded. You could have seen that compared to the ancient Olympic Games policy, everyone could participate. It doesn't matter whether you could be a man or woman, a disabled person, a child, a young lad, as long as you were qualified, certified by any international federation, registered under any international federation, recognized by any international federation of any IOC certified, I would say, sporting discipline, could go everywhere, because that way you could be recognized as a continent class or world class athlete to participate in the Olympic Games. Everyone could participate, unlike in the ancient Olympic Games. Progress is key. You guys wondering which Olympic disciplines were introduced since 1896? Well, I'll tell you now. So, by the time, in every summer and winter sports combined. First with summer sports, both discontinued in former sports. We start with swimming, with artistic swimming, diving, marathon swimming, sprint race and relays, swimming, water polo, basketball with 3 versus 3 and classical basketball, canoe, in sprint and slalom. Then cycling, you have BMX freestyle, lastly introduced in Tokyo 2020, BMX racing, mountain biking, road cycling, and track cycling. You have artistic gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics, and trampoline gymnastics. In volleyball, you have the beach volley and indoor volleyball. You still have equestrian events, but now it's only on horses. You have 3 events: equestrian dressage, equestrian eventing, and equestrian jumping. You have 2 special equestrian events though, vaulting and driving. So with sulkies, which is a descendant of the former chariots we knew back in the day during the ancient Olympic Games era. In combat sports, we start with wrestling. You have wrestling freestyle and the Greco-Roman style. You have archery. So for the fun fact, I have practiced 5 years of archery. It was a really good sport, perfect if you want to improve your amount of focus and accuracy in shooting. Really a wise sport, I would say. Wise and noble sport. And yes, of course, nerds, it's physical, especially for the upper body. Not as physical as motorsports, but it still demands high amounts of stabilization force, wire tracking force, in order to shoot properly, manage to hold your bow, and to stay stable and concentrate, aim right, and taking into account many specific parameters proper to archery in order to score some points in there. And if you think I'm overselling my former discipline, instead of watching TV, just go to your local club, shoot some arrows, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 60, 70, 90, 100, 150 meters and beyond, because you can have ranges in certified competitions which can go until 200 meters, 250 meters in some specific cases, and it goes way beyond in wheeling archery with wheeling bows. By this time it's in a hunting competition. You'll see what I'm talking about. My longest shooting ranges in the sports that I did in 5 years of practicing were 150 meters outdoor, 90 meters indoor, both on classic bows, and 210 meters with wheeling bows, and something like 25 meters in barebow categories. It's really tricky, many things to learn. You have to adapt to many types of environments and weather conditions. I personally prefer outdoor shooting rather than indoor shooting because you have much longer ranges, and like in motocross, you have a better feeling of freedom, of liberty. You're shooting in a natural environment, much more appreciable, and with trickier conditions when not sunny, when you have more wind to take into account. Yeah, that's something else than indoor shooting. And for your culture, so back in June 2009, I almost got a victory in an outdoor bow shooting competition in Dombasle-sur-Meurthe in France, near my hometown, Nancy. So yeah, in competition, every round you have to shoot 3 arrows. In the 3 practicing rounds, just before the beginning of the competition, unlimited amount of arrows can be shot. So I was in training, and I have like 2 training sessions, and then just after you have the beginning round, so with only 3 arrows load. We already started at the 3rd round, so the first actual round. I forgot we already started the competition, and I did a mistake. I shot a 4th arrow. The 4th arrow wasn't allowed. It was an extra arrow. That extra arrow costed me the first place. It could have been my first competition win in young regional championship, and I fucked it up. Instead, I finished 3rd. There were 2 excellent shooters just behind me as opponents. I could have beat them without this extra arrow. So I'm a little bit disappointed on this side, but I was so happy because I fought so hard during many indoor and outdoor competitions to get good results, and I finally did it on my 2nd year of bow shooting. So yeah, I was really proud about that, even my family. It was good memories for me. It was a good day that day, and I improved a lot and I learned a lot. So yeah, still happy about it. And apart from that, I noticed that I was much better in outdoor shooting. Like I said before, outdoor shooting is something that I really prefer. I really feel like I'm in my elements, literally, compared to indoor shooting. In indoor shooting, I'm kind of okay. I'm kind of good on certain places, and this is not a legend when you are in competition somewhere. I don't know. It doesn't matter which sport you are practicing, but there are some places that you're getting lucky. There are some places that you're getting cursed in. I will never forget my fellow friend Thomas Friedrich, who brought me into the sports. We both have our lucky places and cursed places. So lucky places for me would be, for example, Dombasle in outdoor shooting, when Thomas prefers indoor shooting. I don't really remember which place he's getting lucky with, but I remember one thing. He's definitely cursed with Famec in Moselle, in France. And for me, it's definitely Vendôme, an indoor shooting competition. Vendôme is next to my home city. And oh my god, this place is fucking cursed. This is the place where I did the worst bow shooting performance of my whole bow shooting career. I swear to god. Thomas, if you're watching this episode, say with me, curse you, Famec, and curse you, Vendôme. And no, this sport is really something that we definitely don't see on TV. Concerning the key parts of it, so not sure you'll be quite as good as the people who do, especially Asian, South Koreans, and Chinese and Japanese in high levels. Those are the best in this discipline. We French bow shooters are generally ranked just behind them. I'm not sure you'll be quite good as them on the same ranges. And yeah, we have like 3 categories: wheel bows, bare bows, so with no assistance, no visors, nothing, just a bow, your warrior, your arrow, and you're ready to shoot. You have to apply a specific technique to shoot your arrow, because otherwise you'll get fucked. And the classic. I shoot in the 3 categories. My favorites and second hardest after the wheel bows, or should I say the bare bow, it depends, is definitely the classic. The classic category in archery is where you handle the heaviest bows in the archery world. So yeah, try it out. Stop watching TV and try it out for real. You'll see how big the difference is. Back to the other sports now, with athletics, badminton, boxing, breakdancing to be introduced in the next 2024 Paris Olympics. Fencing, I really love this sport. Field hockey, football, golf, handball, judo, the modern pentathlon. So this time scheduled in 1 week, so you have 1 event per day. The difference between modern and ancient pentathlon is that the ancient pentathlon was made in only 1 day for the whole competition. 5 events were contested over 1 day: the stallion, the short foot race, the javelin throw, discus throw, and long jump. And the modern pentathlon includes this time épée fencing, 200-meter freestyle swimming, the show jumping with an unfamiliar horse, so a horse that you don't know, a 3-kilometer cross-country running, and pistol shooting. That's something else. So modern pentathlon, ladies and gentlemen. Then moving on to rowing, rugby sevens, sailing, shooting with a rifle and pistol, skateboarding, sport climbing, surfing, table tennis, taekwondo, tennis, the classic, triathlon, a mix of swimming, road cycling, and running. Really good sport when you want to maintain your health in a good way, to stay fit, improve your cardio, but improve also your muscular structure. Then baseball, softball, which is like baby baseball, kind of. It's baseball played on shorter fields. Martial arts, we continue. We have karate in kata, in kumite, two Japanese words designating two different karate fighting styles. These two categories are two different events in Olympic karate. You have field handball, rugby union, basketball, cricket, croquet, lacrosse, the jeu de paume, the polo, rackets, which is different from badminton and tennis. It's another British racket sport. You have the roque, different from the croquet, the tug of war, you're not tripping, the tug of war, water motorsports, which were introduced in London in the 1908 Olympic Games. So it was like motorboat races. You have figure skating, ice hockey, so two winter games disciplines. At the beginning it was scheduled at the summer games for 5 or 6 editions, and then they were rescheduled during the winter games because sports like figure skating and ice hockey are better played and much better integrated in the winter theme, let's say. So yeah. Winter games, speaking of which, we have bobsleigh, skeleton, figure skating now, short track, speed skating and speed skating, team relays. In ski, so you have skiing, alpine skiing, where my co-host Anna is a specialist of, cross-country skiing, freestyle skiing, Nordic combined, ski jumping, snowboarding, which is the specialty of our guest of the day, Mr. Michal Ligocki, biathlon, curling, ice hockey, luge, ski mountaineering, biathlon military patrol. In demonstration summer sports this time, so you have American football back in 1932, the Katzen in 1928, Katzen or Frisian handball, another kind of handball. You have the Australian football in 1956, the Tampin bowling in 1988, the Budo in 1964. So the Budo, you know, was all the martial arts featuring weapons mainly. These sports were born from a Japanese fighting motto. You have the Pesapo, 1952, Finnish sports, Gaelic football, 1904, the Glima in 1912, gliding, in 1936 in Berlin. It was cool to see some aeronautic sports to be featured in. Hurling in 1904, korfball in 1920 and 1928, Lacan, ancestor of the savate and fencing in 1924, roller hockey in 1992, the savate in 1924, so the savate boxing, Swedish gymnastics named Ling in 1948, weight training with dumbbells in 1904, water skiing in 1972. And like all the 1900 Olympic events widely regarded today as official, there were other events conducted during the 1900 World's Fair of Paris, like angling, so literally fisherman's contest, ballooning, hydrogen-fueled and non-fueled, the boule, or like we say to these days, la pétanque, called French sports, mostly practiced in Marseille, in the south, cannon shooting, not with a gun, cannon shooting, firefighting, kite flying, surf life-saving, long pom, motor racing and motorcycle racing, so motorsports, pigeon racing, and water motorsports. Motor and motorcycle racings were introduced in the Paris Olympic Games back in 1900, so for the Paris World Fair. So remember, to put back in the context, 1900 was the end of the 19th century, when we discover in the late 1890s the power of coal, electricity, and later petroleum, which led to the Industrial Revolution. So the automotive world was born from this major humanity history events. Many things were invented as well as revolutionized our way of moving, transporting, heating, living, creating, and finding business opportunities, market scalings, trading, etc. And it was the end of a predominantly agrarian and artisanal society towards a commercial and industrial society, marking by then the end of a massive equestrian and horsing era to make the big switch to massive machinery era. The main man-used transports was to this day, after it was constantly developed and democratized, the car. So cars and bikes, planes, or even motorboats, depending on where you were moving on the roads, rails, on the water, in the air. And this is where I want to come with my point. So it was showed as a new invention, so as a demonstration sports, first in 1900 in Paris. People liked it. So there was a rally in Domini Lake, and then some races like Paris, Toulouse, Paris, in many categories, small cars, large cars, with many upcoming stars from the early beginnings of the automotive era. Louis Renault, Schrader, Cortés, Alfred Velg, or Leveg, the ancestor of Pierre Leveg, Pinson, Carl Voigt, Pont Levasseur, Gilbert Brown, some unknown drivers driving Didion Bouton cars, Riker Electric, Peugeot, Pont Levasseur again, Delahaye, de Dietrich. So Lorraine Dietrich is a famous French car brand from my home region, Lorraine. The brand was really famous alongside Bugatti and everything. For its performance, reliable, and comfortable luxury cars back in the 1910s, 1920s, even 30s. But again, like many other brands like Hispano Suiza or Hotchkiss, many disappeared because of the economical situation again. Thank you, World Wars. Anyway, back to the list. So, Virtu, Serpollet, Renault again, but this time I'm talking about the car the Renault brothers made, Anzer, etc. Have many categories: 2-seater cars under 400 kilos, over 400 kilos, 6-seater cars, 7-seater taxi patrol 300 kilometers, electric category when it was the beginning, the actual beginning of the electric development of cars, delivery van, small truck, fire truck, many things. It then continued with the motorcycle races. There were 2 events named Race A, Race B, a 1-mile race. First one won by a certain A. Jordan from USA. Second one won by a certain E. Holloway from USA as well. This was the only motorbike event we would see in motorsports. Concerning cars, we will not see another Olympic motorsport events, automotive events, before the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin. Before that, in 1908, there were water motorsports with motorboats races in London. So you had again guys like Georges Pitre, Jules Valton, Delinière, Michelson, Houdin, Galis, Marnix, Auguste Dussault, Xavier Schelcher, Schindler, and Depré. All successful racers were French. We are known in France, as a fun fact, to be the literal pioneers and founders of the basics of automotive, as automotive was born in our country. Mass standardized production cars were born in 1908 at Ford in America with the Ford Model T, but the real basics with artisanal, handmade, luxurious, reliable, high quality, bespoke and performant cars and racing cars were made at home in France with many now disappeared prestigious constructors like the ones I mentioned before. And finally, in 1936, in Berlin, there were many Olympic automotive rally events, all won by foreigners, mainly French, and no German in sight. The German officials and Olympic commissions were so ashamed, and especially because of the policy of the Nazis' ideologies in Germany at that time, with the rising of the Nazi regime and of Adolf Hitler's Third Reich. So German constructors and German Olympic committees decided to not be there during the podium celebrations, as they were so ashamed of their defeats against foreigners and especially French drivers on their home soil. Please stop the hate, guys. We have won, you have lost. Have to recognize. It's just a game. And finally, in demonstration winter sports, you have the bandy, 1952, ski yachting in 1928. It's like a ski race, but you're pulled by a horse. Really risky. The disabled skiing, introduced in 1984 and 1988 as demonstration sports, ice stock sports in 1936 and 1964, the ski ballet or acro ski, so dancing with skis, wow, in 1988 and 1992, the sled dog racing in 1932, speed skiing in 1992, and the winter pentathlon in 1948. The winter modern pentathlon is composed of cross-country skiing, shooting with rifle, downhill skiing, fencing, and horse riding. And governing bodies of the following sports, though not contested in the Olympic Games, are recognized by the IOC, like air sports, American football, auto racing, bandy baseball, billiard sports, so 8-ball pool, bull, bowling, bridge, the cards, cheerleading, yes, you heard right, cheerleading, chess, cricket, floorball, flying disc, ice stock sports, karate, kickboxing, korfball, lacrosse, life saving, motorcycle racing, mountaineering and climbing, Muay Thai, so Thai boxing, netball, orienteering, pelota basca, pelote basque, polo, power boating, racquetball, roller sports, sambo, martial art with Soviet origins, softball, squash, sumo, tug of war, underwater sports, water skiing, wakeboarding, and wushu. All of these mentioned sports are not contesting the Olympic Games for many reasons, including motorsports. They will say it's because of money reasons and everything, but on the other side, they allowed the equestrian sports, which are, for those who know, really expensive sports. One of the most expensive sports in the world. They also allowed golfing, literally a rich sport, tennis, a rich sport, but not motorsports. And I know that, I mean, of course, you cannot include things like Formula 1, big track racing like GT and everything. Big instances and newbies have to understand that motorsports by the time have also improved and evolved so much by the time in plenty of aspects and in so many disciplines. You know, to me, the best combo you can have between disciplines, attractivity, cost and logistics, diversity of aspects and skills, and should I add commercial potential, is rallycross racing, which combines to me all of the benefits and main aspects of motorsports on 4 wheels. And concerning 2 wheels, I would say motocross, supermoto, and track racing, but not at a high level, let's say. Things like MotoGP would cost a lot, but things like Moto2, Moto3, or Superbike would cost less. And I think it's completely possible to organize something like that, for something that costs less than even things like football, equestrian sports. I mean, come on, man. And these are sports like I will develop in the next upcoming debate. Motorsports are really something physical, technical, really interesting. This is my passionate heart speaking, but I will explain why in the upcoming debate. Since its creation in 1896, the modern Olympic Games hosted to this day 29 Summer Games and 24 Winter Games. And unlike the ancient Olympic Games back in Olympia in ancient Greece, have brought, since 1896, athletes from all around the world, competing against or with each other, depending on your vision of the thing, bringing new friendships and bringing new challenges. This time not only limiting themselves to Greece, but to all around the world, traveling in many different countries with all diverse cultures in 126 years of existence until the last Beijing 2022 Winter Games, to give everything they had, no matter what the weather was, sunny, rainy, no matter if the sports were practiced indoor or outdoor, in winter or summer conditions. Definitely a typical whole new concept, paying tribute to the ancient Olympic Games and brought to a modern days concept accepted on a global scale. So we had, of course, the first one, the 1896 Olympic Games held in Athens, Greece, the 1900 Paris Games in France, St. Louis, United States in 1904, the 1908 London Games in the United Kingdom, 1912 Stockholm Games in Sweden, 1920 Antwerp Games in Belgium, 1924 Paris Games in France, 1928 Amsterdam Games in the Netherlands, the 1932 Games from Los Angeles, United States, the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, Germany, the 1948 London Olympics in UK, the 1952 Helsinki Olympics in Finland, the 1956 Melbourne Games and Stockholm Games in Australia and Sweden, the 1960 Roma Games in Italy, 1964 Tokyo Games in Japan, the 1968 Mexico City Games in Mexico, the 1972 Munich Games in Western Germany. So at the time, Germany was divided in 2 parts, and same thing for its capital city, Berlin, sharing both the Eastern Bloc, USSR, and the Western Bloc by the NATO. The 1976 Montreal Games in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, the 1980 Moscow Games in Soviet Union, the 1984 Los Angeles Games in the United States of America, the 1988 Seoul Games in South Korea, the 1992 Games in Barcelona, Spain, the 1996 Atlanta Games in the United States, the 2000 Sydney Games in Australia, the 2004 Athens Games in Greece, the 2008 Beijing Games in China, the 2012 London Games in UK, the 2016 Rio Games in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and to finish, the 2020 Tokyo Games held in Tokyo, Japan, and postponed to 2021 due to COVID, obviously. Those were all the Summer Olympic Games from 1896 to 2020. Concerning Winter Olympic Games, they started in 1924 with the Chamonix Games in France, followed in 1928 by the St. Moritz Games, Switzerland, and then 1932 Lake Placid Games in the United States. In 1936, so winter 1936, the Garmisch-Partenkirchen game in Germany, the 1948 games in St. Moritz, Switzerland again, the 1952 Oslo games in Norway, the 1956 Cortina d'Ampezzo games in Italy, the 1960 Squaw Valley in the United States, the 1964 Innsbruck games in Austria, the 1968 games of Grenoble in France, the 1972 Games in Sapporo in Japan, the 1976 Games in Innsbruck, Austria, 1980 Lake Placid Games again in the United States, the 1984 Sarajevo Games in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia, now Bosnia-Herzegovina, the 1988 Calgary Games in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, the 1992 Winter Games in Albertville, France, the 1994 Lillehammer Games in Norway, then 1998 Nagano Games in Nagano, Japan, the 2002 Salt Lake City Games in United States, the 2006 Torino Games in Italy, the 2010 Vancouver Olympic Games in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, the 2014 Sochi Games in Russia, the 2018 Pyeongchang Games in South Korea, and the 2022 Beijing Winter Games in Beijing, China. So through the modern Olympic history, since 1896, we have to mention a list of some of the most iconic athletes who marked this modern era of the Olympic Games in many diverse sporting disciplines coming from all around the world. Athletes who were the most medal or the most gold medal awarded through these games through history in both summer and winter Olympic sports. So, starting with summer Olympic sports in archery, Belgian Hubert van Nilis, in artistic swimming, Svetlana Romashina from Russia, then in athletics, Carl Lewis from USA, do I need to explain the story of this guy? Same thing applies for the legend runner-up from Jamaica, Mr. Usain Bolt, who holds the world record, by the way. Coming from Jamaica too, we have Johan Blake and Asafa Powell, and from the Netherlands at a lower level, but still good in my opinion, Choranji Martina. I need to mention some endurance racing stars as well, like Eliud Kipchoge from Ethiopia, Abel Gessi in female from Ethiopia as well. Coming back in men's athletics, we have from Great Britain, the GOAT, Mo Farah, and Ezekiel Kemboi from Kenya. And because he beat the GOAT in the last 2019 Athletics World Championships from USA, Justin Gatlin. We have many star athletes coming from France as well. I could not miss these guys. Folks like Christophe Lemaitre, Mayedine Mekissi Benabad, Renaud Lavillenie, Kevin Mayer, Pascal Martino Lagarde, Ladji Doucouré, Jimmy Vico, and we even have the privilege to have the best track walk athlete in the world from our country, France, Mr. Johan Diniz, the GOAT. In badminton, guys like Gao Ling from China, Fu Haifeng from China also, Kim Dong-moon from South Korea, Zhang Nan, Zhao Yunlei, Gefei, Gu Jun, Lin Dan, Zhang Jun, and Zhang Ning, all from China. Special mention to Carolina Marin from Spain. Pedro Luis Lazo from Cuba in baseball. So record in basketball since 1936. Record players, or women actually, both Americans, Schubert and Diana Taurasi. And obviously, especially concerning last past 30 years in basketball, we could mention America, Spain, Lithuania, then Slovenia more recently have dominated this discipline. We could mention some players. So obviously some banger players, American superstars. PGM shit, get ready. First with King James, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Dave Robertson, Tim Hardaway, Magic Johnson, Grant Hill, Shaquille O'Neal, Larry Bird, Lamar Odom, Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, legend obviously, Karl Malone, Jim Butler, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, Allen Iverson, Carlos Boozer, Richard Jefferson, Sean Murray, Draymond Green, Damian Lillard, Zach LaVine, Jason Tatum, Dwayne Wade, Bam Adebayo, Kyrie Irving, Kyle Lowry, Chris Middleton, Chris Bosh, Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, Kobe Bryant, Klay Thompson, DeAndre Jordan Jr., Dwight Howard, Deron Williams, Kevin Love, Paul George, DeMarcus Cousins. And you guys are still wondering why Team USA is practically winning every time? These guys in Olympic history are the literal Olympic basketball big boss level. Beating them is a huge mark of respect, even a miracle at this point. You want to get some respect, you gotta beat Team USA in basketball. So we start hard with Team USA. Should I remind you that Team USA also had the typical dream team back in 1992, featuring its best legendary assets. So as you know, NBA is the National Basketball Association from the United States of America. Like I said before, in Berlin Like a Greek Freak, the second episode previously released, the best players in the world don't play or rarely play in the FIBA Championship. They mostly play in the NBA Championship instead. It's like motocross. USA is where the money and where the level are at their pinnacle. This is where the shit is. So other legends, obviously from NBA, like all the USA players coming from other countries. From Canada, you have Steve Nash, the star player from the Dallas Mavericks. From China, you have the legend Yao Ming, Tallboy, Menki Batir, Yi Jianlian, Wang Shishi. From Argentina, the guy who played in the San Antonio Spurs alongside Tony Parker from France, Emmanuel Manu Ginobili, Fabrizio Oberto. Talking about Spain now with Ricky Rubio, Rudy Fernandez, Pau and Marc Gasol, Roberto Dueñas, Jose Calderon, Sergei Ibaka, and Raul Lopez. From Russia, Andrei Kirilenko. Lithuania, we have guys like Jonas Valenčiūnas, Darius Sungaiska, Linas Kleisa, Arvydas Sabonis, and Aurelias Zukowskas. was Greece also back in the day, especially in the early thousands, as it's weird to say, with Antonis Fotsis, Andreas Liniakis, and Vasilis Parodis. And I'll bet you guys that next time, so in Paris 2024, for example, Yanis, Thanasis, or Kostas Antetokounmpo, one of these three will be at least once featured in the next Hellas Hellenikos Greek team, the Greek Olympic team for the next Paris Olympics in 24. Moving on now to another NBA star from Brazil this time, Anderson Varejao. From UK, Luol Deng. From Serbia, Nikola Jokic. And Bogdan Bogdanovic. From Germany, Dirk Nowitzki. The PGM who literally carried the team in the last 2020 Olympics, Luka Doncic from Slovenia. And now let's focus on France. So back in the day we had players like Yann Bonato, Jim Bilba, Ronny Choryav in 2008, big legends from Strasbourg, Nando De Colo, and then international legends, Tony Parker, Nicolas Batum, Boris Diaw, Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier, Geoffrey Lauvergne. Fucking bangers, guys. In boxing, Laj Lopap from Hungary, Felix Sabon from Cuba, Teofilo Stevenson from Cuba as well. But also some guys like Boris Lagutin from USSR, Oleg Saitov from Russia, Zhu Shiming from China, Roberto Camarelli from Italy, Zbigniew Pieczykowski from Poland, Arnold van der Linde from the Netherlands. I would like to put a shout out also on Tony Oka from France. In canoeing and kayaking, a guy from Germany named Birgit Fischer, Jason Kinney in track cycling, and Bradley Wiggins from Great Britain. Great story, this guy, from the track to the Champs-Élysées. These guys are specialists of the discipline both on tracks and on the road. In diving, Dmitry Sautin from Russia, Wu Mingxia and Chen Rulin from China. In equestrian events, woman German athlete Isabel Wirtz is the most medal in this equestrian events. In fencing, Eduardo Mangiarotti from Italy and Aladar Gerevich from Hungary. In field hockey, Leslie Claudius, Udam Singh from India, Dan De Nooijer from Netherlands, Luciana Aymar from Argentina, Dhyan Chand, Ranganathan Francis, Randir Singh Gentle, and Babir Singh Senior from India, and Rachel Hawkes from Australia. In soccer football, American, surprisingly, so Christy Rimpone from USA, Shannon Box, Heather Mitz, Heather O'Reilly, all from USA. In golfing, US specialists, Chandler Egan, Bert McKinney, Francis Newton, Charles Sands, Margaret Abbott, Edward Cummins, Kenneth Edwards, Walter Egan, Robert Hunter, Nathaniel Moore, Mason Phelps, Daniel Sawyer, Clement Smoot, Warren Wood, Xander Schauffele, and Nelly Corder from USA, Inbee Park from South Korea, Justin Rose from Great Britain, Lydia Ko from New Zealand, and George Lyon from Canada. In gymnastics, most successful was Larissa Latinina from USSR. In handball, Nikola Karabatic from France, Andrei Lavrov from Russia, Marit Mal Frafjord from Norway, Catherine Lunde from Norway, and Oh Seung-ok from South Korea. In judo, do I need to introduce this guy? From France, Teddy Riner, and from Japan, Ryoko Tani and Tadahiro Nomura. In modern pentathlon, most successful were Pavel Ledinov from USSR and Andras Balcho from Hungary. In rowing, Elisabetta Lipa and Georgeta Damian from Romania and Steve Redgrave from Great Britain. In rugby, Joseph Hunter, Charles Lee Tilden Jr. and Colby Slater from USA, Jerry Tuwai from Fiji, Kelly Brazier, Gail Broughton, Teresa Fitzpatrick, Serra Irene, Tyler Nathan Wong, Ruby Tuwai and Portia Woodman from New Zealand. In sailing, Ben Ainsley from Great Britain, Robert Scheidt, Torben Grael from Brazil, Paul Evstrom from Denmark. In shooting, Carlos Byrne and Willis Augustus Lee, as well as Alfred Lane and Maurice Fisher from USA were the most successful. One non-American is Ole Lilleway Olsen from Norway. I would like to add the Qatari multiple Dakar Rally champion Mr. Nasser Alatia, who is also a multiple champion in skeet events, in rifle shooting. In skateboarding, it was Keegan Palmer from Australia, Pedro Barros, Kelvin Hoffler, Raisa Leal from Brazil, Corey Juno and Jagger Eaton from United States, Sky Brown from Great Britain, and Sakura Yosozumi, Kokona Iraki, Yuto Rigome, Momiji Nichiya, and Funa Nakayama from Japan. In sports climbing, in men's combined, Alberto Gines Lopez from Spain, Nathaniel Coleman from the USA, and Jakob Schubert from Austria. In women's, you have Janja Garnberet from Slovenia, Miho Nonaka and Aki Yonoguchi from Japan. In surfing, in men's shortboard, you had Italo Ferreira from Brazil, Kanoe Igarashi and Amuro Suzuki from Japan, Owen Wright from Australia, Carissa Moore from the USA, and Bianca Buitendag from South Africa. In softball, Laura Berg, Lisa Fernandez, Laurie Harrigan, Leah O'Brien from USA, Tanya Harding, Melanie Roche, and Natalie Ward from Australia. In swimming, just one name, Michael Phelps, United States of America. Thank you, goodbye. He's the most successful in swimming, but also in the whole Summer Olympic Games history and in the whole modern Olympic Games history ever. Michael Phelps, the most awarded Olympian in modern history. I'd like to mention also some talented swimmers coming from France, males and females, from Brazil also. I'm thinking about Cesar Cielo from Brazil, Missy Franklin, Nathan Adrian, and Ryan Lochte from the USA, Laure Manodou, Florent Manodou, Yenny Caniel, Camille Muffat, RIP to her, Camille Lacour, and Alain Bernard from France. In table tennis, Dmitry Ovcharov from Germany, Malong from China, a freaking legend this guy by the way. In Taekwondo, Hwang Kyung-seon from South Korea, Steven Lopez from USA, Chen Zong and Wu Jingyu from China, Jade Jones from UK, Maria Espinosa from Mexico, and Hadi Sai from Iran. In tennis, Venus Williams and Serena, his sister, are the most successful from USA. The other non-American is Kitty McCain from Great Britain. In triathlon, Jonathan and Esther Brownlee from Great Britain are the most successful. Moving on to volleyball now, you have Ana Fernandez, Regla Bella, Marnelis Costa, Idanis Gato, Lilia Izquierdo, Mireia Luis, Regla Torres from Cuba, Kerry Walsh Jennings, as well as Coach Curley and Misty May Trainer from USA, Ina Riscal from the USSR, Sergio Santos from Brazil, Sergei Tetyukin from Russia, Samuele Papi from Italy. In water polo, Desho Giarmati, Georgi Karpati, Tibor Benedek, Peter Biros, Tamas Casas, Georgelikis, Tamas Molnar, and Zoltan Chesi from Hungary, Maggie Stephens, Melissa Seidman from the USA, and finish from Great Britain, Paulo Radmilovic and Charles Smith. In weighting, from Greece, Piros Dimas and Karhi Karhiashvili, from Turkey, Halil Mutlu, Naim Suleymanoglu, from China, Lu Xiaoshun, Ekoyuli Irawan from Indonesia, Norbert Szymanski from USA, Nikolai Peselov from Croatia, and Ronnie Veller from Germany. And to finish the summer sports, in wrestling, most successful were Wilfried Dietrich from Germany, Kaori Icho from Japan, and Michael Lopez from Cuba. Concerning winter sports now, starting with alpine skiing, Anna Zukowska from Poland. I wish it was the case, but no. So Kjetil André Amot from Norway, Tessa Worley and Alexis Pinturo from France, Lynn Seven from USA, and Janica Kostelic from Croatia. In biathlon, the GOATs, Ole Einar Bjørndalen from Norway, the main rival of Martin Fourcade from France. In bobsleigh, Bogdan Mushel from Eastern Germany, Kevin Kusker, André Lange, Francisco Friedrich, and Torsten Margis from Germany as well. Germany dominates bobsleigh. In cross-country skiing, all from Norway, Marit Bjørgen and Bjørn Daly. In curling, Oskar Eriksson, Anna Lemoine, Catherine Lindahl, Eva Lund, and Annette Norberg from Sweden, and John Morris and Caitlin Lowes from Canada. Figure skating now, we have Scott Moir and Tessa Virtue from Canada, Judith Grafström from Sweden, Sonia Henje from Norway, and Irina Rodnina from USSR. Freestyle skiing, so you have Ailing Gu, Shu Mengtao, and Jia Zongyang from China, David Wise and Nick Gopper from USA, Michael Kingsbury and Alexandre Bilodeau from Canada, Mathilde Grémaud from Switzerland, and Tarik Karitra from Norway. Ice hockey, Jaina Hefford, Haley Wickenheiser, and Caroline Willets from Canada. In luge, all German, Natalie Geisenberger, Tobias Arts, and Tobias Wendel. In Nordic combined, greatest are Felix Gottwald from Austria, Sampra Lajunen from Finland, Erik Frenzel from Germany, and Ulrich Willing from Eastern Germany. In short track speed skating, Ariana Fontana from Italy, Victor An from Russia, and An Hyun-soo from South Korea. In skeleton now, we have Lizzie Yarnell from Great Britain, John Hitton from USA, Martins Dukurs from Latvia, Gregor Stelly from Switzerland. In ski jumping, Matti Nikanen from Finland and Simon Amann from Switzerland. Snowboarding, unfortunately, Mihail is not featured in there. Maybe in a few years, if he works his way out, as he's already doing it so well, maybe he will be considered as one of the GOATs. If the Olympics is much more important than a World Cup or World Championship, I don't know about that one. So the GOATs refused at the X Games. The greatest snowboarder of all time, ladies and gentlemen, Shaun White from USA. We also have Jamie Anderson, Lindsay Jacobellis, and Kelly Clark from USA as well. From Russia, Vic Wilde, Ayumu Hirano from Japan, Benjamin Karl from Austria, Max Barrett, as well as Mark McMorris from Canada, Zan Kosier from Slovenia, Zoe Sadowski-Synod from New Zealand, and to finish, in speed skating, Irene Vost from the Netherlands and Lydia Skoblikova from the USSR. And that's it basically. Most of the names are not that much famous for some of you guys, while it actually is the case for some others. I'll try to mention names that were mostly famous for what they have achieved through the Olympic Games summer and winter modern history, so that you guys could have a global watch list of all those iconic Olympic athletes, heroes. And then to get a global overview and a better idea of what's been going on through the past years, and to understand who were the real deals through this modern era, in order to increase your culture as well. You see how much I care for you? And to finish, just a historical classification by country, this time in number of medals. So the United States are dominating the modern Olympic Games in front of the USSR, P3 for the UK, China in P4, France, we completed top 5, Italy P6, Germany in 7th, Hungary in 8th, Japan in 9th, Australia in 10th place, Eastern Germany in 11th, Russia in 12th, Sweden in 13th, Finland 14th, South Korea 15th, Netherlands 16th, Romania 17th, Cuba 18th, Poland 19th, and to finish the top 20, Canada P20. And because the topic is about the Olympics, I wanted to take the occasion to talk about the latest results of the 2020 Games. We are talking about the 32nd Olympiad of the modern era, organized after Tokyo 1964 and postponed 1 year later to summer 2021, from 23rd of July to the 8th of August 2021, followed by the Paralympics from the 24th of August to the 5th of September 2021, postponed because of COVID-19 obviously. It was a really good edition actually. These games also seen the introduction of 5 new sporting disciplines: surfing, sports climbing, karate, baseball, softball, and skateboarding, also including new disciplines in new sports. So for example, in basketball, the 3 versus 3 basketball, the BMX freestyle, in BMX in cycling. Many progress were made, and the lessons were learned from the emergence of the X Games creation. The X Games were created because all of these former extreme sports, for most of these, were refused by the IOC. Then was created in 1996 the X Games to promote all the refused extreme sports to compete in the Olympics, and all of this led to the rise of their popularity, and they saw that it was something working. They did the same in the X Games with the rally racing, rallycross racing, gymkhana grid racing, with the sport of guys like Ken Block, Colin McRae, Travis Pastrana, only legends. They have as well as the Olympics, Summer X Games, and Winter X Games. So in Winter X Games you can see more freestyle snowboard events, big jumps, more creative and outstanding tricks, things like that. Snow bike races, snow bike freestyling, many things. All the interesting and extreme sports refuse to be introduced in the IOC program, and we even saw that it was the case for automotive with Motorsports, but for some reason the IOC decided to not include Motorsport to their program to this day, after everything they did from demonstration sports in the 1900s to what has been done in the last Summer and Winter X Games. And should I add, including the FIA Motorsport Games, the multi-sport motorsports events of nation administered by the FIA, and where 3 editions were scheduled from 2019 to the last October 2022. I will come back to this subject later during the next upcoming debates about the reintroduction of motorsports in the Olympic Games. So for all the events in Tokyo 2020, and as far as I remember, since I started watching them regularly since Beijing 2008, when a host city hosts the Olympic Games, it's not just in the city center and not just in one place. It could be everywhere around in the region, depending on what sporting events you wanted to organize. For example, the mountain biking event was not directly in the center of Tokyo, but instead in the Japan Cycle Sports Center. Track cycling was hosted in the Izu Velodrome. The basketball event was held in the Saitama Super Arena. The football events, modern pentathlon event, and rugby sevens events were held in the Ajinomoto Stadium, so not directly in the city center of Tokyo, because it would block all the traffic going on, and you know that there are many international venues for business but also for tourists, etc. You don't want to bother these people. For example, also for the kite surfing, it was held in the Enoshiba Segami Bay. The surf venue was in Surigasaki Beach Surfing Venue in Ichinomiya region. So I just expose you some examples. Baseball, softball held in the Yokohama Stadium. So you see, for let's say that for organization, logistical reasons, you have to spare all these sports, all these disciplines in different places, because otherwise the organization would be a disaster. And Japan did well that year. Japanese excellence held on to its reputation and succeeded once again. So in examples of solidarity, I invite you to check the article that my former fellow co-workers from Spain made, wrote by Irene Serra and Pili Cortés, talking about everything that happened during these games, all the solidarity highlights, let's say. You can find the article on the top right of your screen in the info bar. The link is also in the description. Feel free to check it out. Concerning highlights that I remind from these games were the 8th final or the 4th final with France against USA. For the first time in our history, we beat USA with a score of 83-76. We were on fire that night. I talked about it in the second episode, the previous episode. It was a really good performance. We came to the final against the USA again. Then the USA woke up, and USA did literally an American thing about basketball. They beat our asses off again because once they understood that we could be excellent opponents, thanks to now key asset players, let's say, that now have a good career, a long career in NBA, like our legend Tony Parker, who is retired now. So I will tell you, guys like Evan Fournier, Rudy Gobert, Nando De Colo, guys like that are just blowing everything up in NBA, and are some of our best assets in our national team, French national team, which makes us now, more than the Olympics, of course, one of the best basketball nations in the world, with USA, Spain. Lithuania is not really the case anymore these days, but still. Slovenia or Slovakia, I don't remember where Luka Doncic was from, but he was really on fire also during this competition. We beat his team with an amazing block from Nicolas Batum, NBA player as well, and a guy who's from my hometown, Nancy. He did a Batman move. Batman is his surname, his AKA, by the way. Without his block, so the way he blocked Doncic, without this move, we would have lost in semi-final. And thanks to our hero, we qualified for the final. We lost anyway against the monsters called USA, but it was worth the play. We did a really good Olympic competition. So these are the highlights I remember best concerning Olympic basketball. All the rest will be explained in my fellow former co-workers article, just to remind you that you can find it in the link in the description. So the top 3 nations to be awarded are first United States, as usual, China in second place, and the good surprise of these games were Japan in third place, followed by UK, the ROC, which is the Russian Olympic Committee team. Those are, let's say, Russian athletes that were allowed to participate under the Olympic flag, because before these games there was a doping story concerning the Federation of Russia, and 95% of the athletes were concerned by this story, and they were by then disqualified by the IOC. Remaining honest Russian athletes were allowed to participate under the ROC flag. To finish the top 10, Australia 6th, Netherlands 7th, France 8th, Germany 9th, and Italy 10th. Burkina Faso, San Marino, and Turkmenistan win their first medals ever during an Olympiad, so it's their first medals in the Olympics history. We should mention the working conditions for the installation of the game, and it's really something really controversial about this game. The 9th of August 2019, 3 workers working on the building of the infrastructures of the games were dead, including one by suicide because of a long unstable working hours, so I presume in bad conditions. I would never ever think that workers in Japan could find the same, and I hope that it's not really the case, but it could be in the same feeling as imported third world workers who worked and died for countries like Qatar. So for the 2022 football World Cup, as an example in a million in this area, it's really surprising for a country with a high reputation like Japan. And it clearly shows and seals once again that every single thing in this world has a dark side. There's no exception. So which one are you choosing to make it tenable for a lifetime? For the numbers, the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games were the most expensive games in history, costing $15.4 billion of US dollars. There were 50 disciplines split in 33 sports, with around 11,000 athletes who fought for 339 gold, silver, and bronze medals. Despite the OIC saying back in Sydney 2000s to not include more than 28 disciplines, they finally included 5 new sports: karate, surfing, climbing, skateboarding, and softball. During these games, no foreigner spectators were allowed in tribunes. The ticket selling loss is worth $810 million US dollars, and 600,000 tourists didn't come in Japan in the end, compiling a total loss of $23 billion US dollars. It is said that it was the most ecological competition in history, featuring cardboard beds for athletes to be recycled after the events, recycled materials medals. They extracted like 32 kilograms of gold, 3,500 kilograms of silver, and 2,200 kilograms of bronze, especially from used smartphones, to produce 500 Olympic and Paralympic medals. The main objective, though, was to reduce carbon emissions during the events. Around 2.9 million tons of CO2 have been produced during the Games. It is lower, though, than Rio 2016 and London 2012. Organizers use electrical vehicles to transport athletes, so it's more of a political choice than an ecological thing, let's say. and they used solar panels to cover sport complex energy needs. And mainly due to COVID, many installations were temporary. Infrastructures installations, sporting complex were only used during the games and not by national and international clubs after the Olympic events for any other important major events. Like for example, I remember in Rio 2016, the Olympic swimming pool is not used anymore. It was just used during the Olympic Games and is now abandoned in the Brazilian landscape. It is a complete waste of energy, money, materials, all this for just 2 weeks and a half Olympic Games, and now it's just perishing with the rest of the landscape. Now this is something that we can actually call pollution, and that stupid ass lefties could never understand, unfortunately. And this is something controversial. Let's make a comparison here. In London, all the sites are still being used because it is useful for the city to host many clubs in many different sports categories and disciplines, like the Lee Watersports Park for kayaking and canoeing, and everything else like the new Olympic Stadium, the mountain biking venue, the horse eventing arenas, basketball arenas, etc, etc. Everything is still used. And in Rio, 95% of the infrastructures are completely useless, standing there for no useful reasons, no useful purposes, not uninstalled, complete waste of resources. This is definitely one bad side of the Olympic Games, and it seems like the lesson wasn't learned to this day. I mean, in 2020, 2021, because we had the same problem in Tokyo in 2020. The sole intention, primary intention, was good, I guess, on paper. But in the end, we finished again with stupid governmental decisions leading to ecological nonsense and a big waste of energy, money, and resources. And workforce as well, should I add, in order to build all these complex but temporary infrastructures, which in the end have finished into garbage, literally, because no other use was made after that. So yeah, authorities now these days have a special definition of what recycling is. Really surprising. The next games will be scheduled in Paris in 2024. Karate will be replaced this time by the new discipline breakdancing. And that's it basically. You have all the basic elements to understand the story of both ancient and modern Olympic Games, with all the summer and winter sporting disciplines explained. Now that you have acquired that, let's head now to the debate of the day. Should motorsports be re-included in the Olympic Games? So as support, I will use a record that has been made back in the day in July 2021. I started the debate with my former co-host Anna Zukowska from Poland, and we talked about that a little bit. Let's head now to the debate, followed just after by the interview of our guest of the day, Polish snowboarder Michal Ligocki.
So, with all we said about the Olympics, according to you, should motorsports be included in the Olympics? Big fan of motorsports, I would say yes, but I have arguments with this. First of all, we should see the definition of the sports. So, Anna, to you, what is a sport basically?
What is a sport? For me, sport is like sport is like any kind of activity that makes our body move and our mind move. I would say sport is something like this.
Okay, so basically a physical activity where you have to give it to yourself, to try to give it your best, improve yourself if possible, and stay fit basically.
Yes, basically that's it. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so depending on the sport, you can have endurance sports or sprint sports, or it depends. Physical sports, technical sports. It depends, but the thing is that the common thing is that sport is a physical activity where you give energy from yourself to stay fit. This is the definition of a sport. Okay, so what are motorsports now? Sports practiced with any kind of vehicles. It could be cars, bikes, even racing trucks, or anything with an engine inside. So we have seen by the time literally any kind of sports introduced in the Olympics, like so first the athletics, but after fencing, tennis, table tennis, shooting, bow shooting, many kinds of sports like that, even in the winter games, so snowboarding, skiing, ice skating, so many and even curling. So many sports, or you have to give it yourself more or less physically or mentally. Motorsports is quite the same thing with the vehicle. Why? I mean, people in their mind, the public opinion keeps telling that if you're in the vehicle, you don't have to be tired because driving is easy and everything. You have aids, you have driving aids, driving helps. This is not like this in motorsports. In motorsport, you're not looking for comfort. You're looking for performance. When you're looking for performance, all the comfort stuff, you put that out. All the AC systems, the power steering, the ABS, the ESP, you put it all out because this is useless. This is useless weight, and the structure of the car, of a race car, is not like your production car. You don't have aluminum, you don't have metal, you have lighter materials. Your basic structure is a roll cage chassis made of alloys of magnesium, alloys of aluminum when it's not possible to have lighter materials, but most commonly, especially on the bodyworks, carbon fiber, glass fiber bodyworks, because it's the lightest. These are the lightest materials possible ever to have on a car, on a race car. All the driving helps are out, and all the comfort stuff are out. So if you want fresh air, you don't have an AC. You have a vent. You have a vent created in the bodywork of the car to have fresh air, but not a complicated system, not a heavy system. That's the idea. So when you're driving, I don't know if you guys have ever made go-kart driving. Anna, have you ever made go-kart driving?
I mean, but just like the one in a fun park, not like the proper go-karts, you know. So I'm not sure if we can count that one because they were not like the go-karts, just like the kids, maybe more like cars.
Okay, if you even for location go-karts, have you noticed a difference between go-kart driving and an actual production car?
I'm not sure what do you mean. I mean, how they are, that they are, I don't know, smaller, they have less.
Yes, for sure, but for example, for the steering, you don't have any power steering
You don't
on
have
your.
like a gear or whatever. You just have like a.
Or
maybe you
depends.
have
It depends of the carts, but yeah, you on the professional carts, KZ1, KZ2, you have a shifter, a sequential shifter. But the main difference is that you don't have any aids, any driving helps. You don't have ABS, you don't have ESP, you don't have power steering.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have all these driving helps, steering at the maximum, when you want to get the maximum performance, to have a better trajectory, better way of driving, to have better lap time, best lap time possible. At one point, it's tiring for your arms, it's tiring for your neck, for the G's. It depends of the vehicle, of course. There's a huge difference between a go-kart and a Formula One, but the key is because you have to stand all the G's, the lateral G's force, and the frontal and back G force for the braking efforts, acceleration efforts, and steering efforts. All these efforts, we don't see them on TV, but requires good physical preparation to stand all this this this
I know.
I have the word in French. I would say it, contraintes.
So just right here, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to talk about stress. It could be from any form in motorsports, mechanical stress as well as physical or mental stress. Any professional drivers or riders concerning two wheels disciplines can relate.
All these elements, okay.
Yeah.
And other than that, you're racing a typical Grand Prix, for example. A typical Formula One Grand Prix is 2 hours and a half. 2 hours and a half, more or less. It's difficult. So you have to be endurance. You have to be to have a sprint mindset at the right time when your team is asking you to gain rhythm, or to manage your gasoline, to manage your tire wears. It's really difficult to manage all this at the same time. Many data to include to your race. and to consider to make the difference between you and the opponents, and you can lose from 2 to 5 liters every race. 5 liters of your own water, so by sweating.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. We don't probably see that on TV, but it's more difficult than it looks. So it's applied to Formula One. So when we hear all the OIC presidents say, motorsports are not athlete sports, I clearly don't agree with them, because this is clearly dangerous sports. I didn't even talk about the incidents, race incidents you can have. You can die during a race. And so I can count that clearly as an athlete sport. It's really demanding physically, really demanding mentally, and you have to be endurance. If you don't have these requirements, you can even practice motorsports at a high professional level. So other than that, the X Games were created back in 1996, if I remember. Why were they created at the same first? Because all the extreme sports were never allowed to be included in the Olympic Games. So like skateboarding. I don't know if snowboarding was a problem to include snowboarding before, because you had the Winter X Games, the Summer X Games, the Winter X Games 2 years after. The X Games were created to make
inclusion for more dangerous sports, maybe?
Exactly, for extreme sports. So included after all the skateboard stuff, the BMX race and freestyle stuff. They included after the motorsports, so rally events, rallycross events, gymkhana events. So rally, you have to link a point A to point B step races in the less amount of time possible. Rallycross is for me the perfect way to promote motorsports for a cheap cost. Basically, it's a race on closed tracks, mixing asphalt and dirt and gravel at the same time. So you have to so it's a race between five cars in each eliminating round, so eliminating hits. So it's really short. You have 4 laps to do every races, and at the same time, you have to. It's like a time attack. You have to get the better, the shorter amount of time possible. Because all the time will be an added amount for the whole race, the whole event. So the time you have in heat 1 plus heat 2 plus heat 3 plus heat 4 plus semi-final plus final. The semi-final and the final are this is contest with 6 cars each. So the 3 first cars from the semi-finals go to the final. The time is not counted starting from the semi-final. And another thing interesting about rallycross is that you have joker laps. What is a joker lap? During a lap, you have you're obliged to go at least once in a different way. It's a longer way to complete the track lap. It's to add more challenge to the drivers, to add more also show to the events. So it's a little longer way to complete the circuit. You have to take it once, or you get a penalty. So all that added up makes for me the perfect racing format to promote motorsports around the world. And for newbies also. So we saw that after X Games sports were accepted in Olympics later, like for example skateboarding. So yeah, for me, the argument about motorsports, which were said by the the OIC directors are for me fake athletes for the arguments, because these sports are clearly dangerous and clearly have their place in the world of the Olympics, at least for rallycross. That's what I think. And it's cheap. It's cheaper than many of the sports or the existing Olympic sports right now.
Is it? Because I thought it's gonna be like super expensive.
Formula One for sure, yes. It's Formula One is one of the most expensive sports in the world. All the track, all the high-level track competitions are really expensive, like endurance racing, the World GD, the GD World Challenge with GD3, GD2. It's really expensive because too much material to bring and everything. Yeah, but rallycross is really cheap. A rally event also is really cheap because you don't have that much installation to have, and these sports are still enjoyable with a less amount of money. We don't, so we don't need we can even make an event like I'm thinking about the Los Angeles 2012 X Games, Summer X Games. For the rallycross events, they made a street circuit in Los Angeles. They don't even need to buy a circuit to build a circuit. They don't even need that because we can do that in the streets directly. I wanted also to add that Motorsports made the historic appearances to promote themselves. So back first in 1900 in Paris during the Universal Exposition at the second Olympiad. It was the Paris to Paris sprint race and an endurance race around the Daumesnil Lake and the Vincennes Woods. Then in 1908 in London for the fourth Olympiad as an official Olympic discipline, this time in the Southampton water motor boating. So it wasn't cars, it was race boats. So there were 3 events of motor boating. And in 1936 in Berlin during the 11th Olympiad as a promotion again, so it was a rally across all Germany, finishing in the Berlin Olympic Stadium. So there are many eligible multi-skilled motorsports, like I said before, like rallycross, rally, the rally raid, the gymkhana. I forgot to mention the gymkhana is a race between 2 contenders each, so with many hits. So you have to be there's a do you know what is horse gymkhana?
I have no idea.
So gymkhana was first for the horses. You have to make a race between you and another opponent. You have to make an obstacle race, like we see in the horse eventing. In the less amount of time possible. You have to finish in front of him. So you have to make, I don't know, there's a barrel, you have to make a round, you have to jump here, and you have to finish this little parkour in front of your opponent to get to the next hit. So the gymkhana principle has been applied to motorsports since 2005. Ken Block is the real was the superstar of this discipline. So we still see that event in the X Games, the Summer X Games, but still not, unfortunately, in the Olympics. I hope it will change in some days. I would like also to add that the GT track racing could be an eligible multi-skill motorsports in track racing, but only for the GT4 and GT3 categories. Open wheel series, but only for Formula 3 and Formula 2, maybe, if not expensive. If there are less than maybe 15 contenders. Motocross also is eligible. Moto 3 on the track, Moto 2, and motor boating as before in 1908 in London. And motocross freestyle, which is in the Summer X Games and also promoted by Red Bull for the Red Bull. There's a special event every year. We have a superstar there, the Frenchman Tom Pages, who won more than 5 titles in motocross freestyle. And other than that, other sports like the horse events were included, expensive sports. the horse eventing is really expensive, and they still included it, but not motorsports when you have cheaper events like than horse eventing. So.
I forgot to mention it, because I was not aware of that. Concerning, for those who know, the FIA Motorsports Games are apparently officially linked to the Olympics ID to re-include or to re-study the re-inclusion of motorsports into the Olympics. It should be good. This is what the official site says. So just as a reminder for those who don't know, the FIA Motorsports Games Championship is a multi-sports motorsports events of nations administered by the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, or FIA. The first event took place in Italy in 2019, won by Russia. The 2020 edition was postponed to 2021, then subsequently to 2022 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The FIA then made the decision to host this edition in Marseille. The event took place from the 29th to the 30th of last October 2022. I wanted to just explain real quick the principle. So many nations, so it's a nations battle principle. They fought against each other in many categories. So many categories I mentioned before in the last 2021 record. So we could find again some autocross. Let's say it's like the ancestor or the downer category from rallycross. We have cross car, drifting, esports. I have another opinion about esports. Sim racing is really good to train at home when you don't have enough, let's say, resources and money to spend into course developments. It's still necessary to have all this data, but if you can have a first approach with cost saving, let's say, it's good. But from that point to make it a full competition, call it a sports, even for, the gamers who play on a professional level, let's say on a Diablo X9 mode, the French community will understand. You have pro gamers, but I still won't call it sports. It's just a video game, bro. And even to come back, I'm more of an old school guy. I grew up with old school values and an old school approach of motorsports. There's no better scale to just have a feedback from a reality rather than using a computer, no matter how realistic it is. A shout out, by the way, to R-Factor 2, Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione, iRacing, Race Room, really excellent sim racing softwares, but these are still sim racing softwares. This is not reality. You cannot... Okay, now you can simulate the vibrations and everything, but it's not. You always have this little difference that reality will make when you will actually test the car or race the car on the actual track. The advantage now is that when you want to go from the Nürburgring to the Dubai Autodrome, then back to Spa-Francorchamps, and then going to Laguna Seca in a few seconds, it's possible. Rather than packing all the stuff, going to the circuit with all the materials, then your staff on a bus or on a plane, then yourself on a plane or bus or on a car, depending on from where to where are you going. But still, back to the other disciplines, you have Formula Racing. So I mentioned it earlier, Formula 4, kart racing, endurance, all the FIA CIK categories you can find, junior, senior, slalom. You even have slalom events, rallying. So with historic rally group, rally 2 group, rally 4 group, and in track racing, you have sports car racing. I talked about GT4 and GT3. They took the best and more expensive formula, the GT3 relay and sprint, and touring car racing, like the cars running in ETCR and WTCR. Tourism car racing is one level downer than the Grand Tourism Racing, GT racing, but still enjoyable and powerful cars, of course. So yeah. Many nations participated in the games. If I go back to 2019 when they were in Italy, if I go through a list of participants, Albania participated, Austria, Australia, Belarus, Belgium, Brazil, China, Taipei, so Taiwan, Costa Rica, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Georgia, Germany, Hong Kong, Hungary, India, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Japan, Kuwait, Latvia, Lithuania, Malaysia, Malta, Mexico, Netherlands, New Zealand, North Macedonia, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Russia, Serbia, Singapore, Slovakia, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Thailand, Turkey, Ukraine, United Kingdom, and USA. Many of these countries that I mentioned are usually never present in international motorsport events. Like, for example, if I take Malta or Ukraine or Belarus, I swear to God, I never saw any of these guys participating in any WEC events, Formula 1 events, WRC events, or even in the downer categories, or even in regional continental categories. I never saw you guys. So it was quite a good change. And I even asked myself at a point, I told myself, all these guys even into motorsports? So I suppose that yes, they are, but I think that there's a huge lack of mediatization, let's say, and events organizations, representation, and connections between championships to make these drivers and riders and nations, to put them in on the front rows to get more notoriety, first of all, attract more sponsors, and all the rest, evaluate in the best conditions possible, because we never saw these guys running in this kind of events before. The FIA Motorsports Games changed that. I just learned recently, last summer, that they were indirectly linked to the Olympic Games. So here is for Roma 2019, if I go real quick, for Marseille 2022 this time, won by Italy. So yeah, you even have guys from Nepal, and after that all the usual nations I mentioned before. You can add Tajikistan, even Peru, and Kosovo. So yeah, quite a diverse field. Contenders are in numbers and will be in numbers in the next officially announced FIA Motorsport Games, which will be held in Valencia, Spain. I'm really glad that this has improved, and I hope that it will be for the better to finally re-include motorsports, so that, you know, the OIC can finally officially recognize motorsports as Olympic sports, as they always deserve to be.
They should have their place. So yeah, we made the tour, and now I want during the interview of our dear Michal Ligocki, I think I said it right.
You didn't.
Fuck. Michal Ligocki.
Much better.
Okay. During this interview, we're gonna introduce him this debate, and we will have the advice of the actual athletes.
Okay, so now let's move on to the interview with our today's guests. It's Michal Ligocki. Michal was a Polish representative in snowboard during the Olympics. So Michal was a Polish representative in Torino 2006, Vancouver 2010, and Sochi 2014. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about like real Olympic experience and how is it to live in an Olympic village. And yeah, let's just move on to today's interview. We all know that the performance at the Olympics is just like a culmination of many years of trainings. And how does the process of preparing how was the process for you? Maybe if you can tell us more about that one.
So for me, I'm a snowboarder, and I took part at the Olympics in Torino 2006, Vancouver 2010, and Sochi 2014. So 3 Olympics in a row in a snowboard freestyle halfpipe discipline. And how was it for me? Actually, I was very into snowboarding as a young kid. Firstly, I was a skier, but then skiing became a bit boring for me. So luckily I switched into snowboarding, which is my biggest passion so far in my life. And when I was a kid, I wasn't really thinking about doing it on the international level and to make the contest. I was just riding for myself, having fun, and of course trying to progress as much as possible, because this was like making me happy. And so the snowboarding was I was getting better and better. I was winning national contests and some international contests like Europa Cups or.
Were you practicing in a club at an early age?
Yeah, I was like, first it was my father kind of helping me. Then I was having some different coaches. Luckily, I got quite early into a Polish snowboard national team. So I was lucky enough I could train with the national team, and we could travel and train more and more. So I was getting better and better, and somehow I was like doing World Cups and World Snowboard Championships, and from there to Olympic Games, it's one step further, and you're there. I was just once you realize Olympics are possible for you, then you kind of must focus on it. You must be all in. Like this is I think the thing number one in your life, like yeah, okay, I would like to go for the Olympics. I'm going there, but I must prepare. It's not like I want to go there. You must achieve your spot actually for the Olympic Games. There are only world best athletes taking part at the Olympic Games. If you want to know like more from the side, how was like my training, how was it looking? How were my trainings? Like my whole year was all about snowboarding. Actually, I was spending like 200 plus days on snow, riding and training, and it was and all over the world actually. In the summertime, like I did not have summer holidays for 12 years, I would say, because when there was a June, I was getting into the plane and I flew to New Zealand or Australia because it's cold over there and there's winter, good snow conditions for training. So I was like spending my summer holidays riding snowboard in New Zealand, which was of course fun, but it was always cold. And so beside riding on snow, I had to also train my acrobatic skills on the trampoline, and also like regular training like strength and physics.
Everything like to keep you fit.
Everything would keep me fit, and also diet, not many parties, way less. Of course, I was studying during most of these years when I was preparing for Olympics games. I was a student too, so
Okay.
I had to combine all of this.
Sounds like a lot, to be honest, and always living in winter. And now for me, it's like impossible even thinking about winter, to be honest, when I'm like in this heat. But sounds very nice, to be honest. Uh, yeah, for now, for sure. Okay, but okay, you were like in a training, so it was something different for sure.
About the Olympics in general, do you have some behind the scenes facts that you can tell us?
Were there any, for example, things, procedures that were surprising to you when you came there, like when you were like for the first time? Was like anything that was like surprising, or I don't know, something? Of course, everything was new because it was your first Olympics, but maybe something in particular was like, I don't know.
I was surprised how well this event is organized. Everything was very like professional, all set, and just waiting for athletes to take part in each discipline, in each contest. And so, you know, the media, riders, coaches, transportation, opening ceremony, it was all very, very well organized. We were just following the program, the calendar, and it was just like going very, very well and smooth. So that was nice. And yeah, I don't know. And mostly that's it. Like what surprised me. And yeah, and I was also surprised how people react on us, on athletes, and on the Olympics itself. The vibe in the Olympic Village and also in the cities where Olympics were held was just amazing. Everyone was happy and cheering for us and supporting us. So this was super cool. I think they don't have it now in Tokyo Olympic Games in Japan, which is a bit sad compared to what I've experienced.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, like competing without an audience, it must be like super sad. I mean, yeah, that sounds like a pretty upsetting experience.
It's a different setup. Speaking of which, what is your opinion about this Tokyo 2020 event postponed now 1 year after? What is your overall opinion about this event?
So I think in the end, it's good that it is happening. Of course, we all know we are living in the difficult times due to COVID, but yeah, I think it's good that they have done it and they're doing it. and so far it's going quite well. Of course, there is no audience, which is probably sad for the athletes, because on the one hand, we're doing mostly for ourselves and for our countries, but we also like to entertain people, because what we do, I think, is kind of entertaining. Like all these disciplines have lots of fans worldwide, and they would like to watch it, sometimes live, sometimes like it's good that we have it on TV, and so this is of course good. But in the end, Olympic medal and with audience or without audience is still an Olympic medal. So I think we all kind of have a thrilling.
You still enjoy the sport moments.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. What life is actually in the Olympic village?
What's life like in the Olympic village? It's I would split it into two parts. First part of your staying in Olympic village is before your competition day. So before your competition day, you must be very focused on your contest, on your program, on your training, diet, and because there are like last few days before the most important day of probably your life.
Yeah.
So it's very quiet, and like athletes are very quiet, but after the competition day,
Celebrate.
it's like a big relief. There's a smaller or bigger celebration happening. You can go and watch some other disciplines and cheer for your friends, and party with them too a bit. So it's but
No diet anymore.
no diet. Yeah.
It's no.
When I was in Vancouver, we had a McDonald's in the Olympic Village, 24/7 open.
Wow.
The first days there was like no one eating there, but every next day there were more and more athletes. Like
Oh god.
person price.
Oh, that's
Cool.
funny.
So you could see clearly in the dining room who's done his.
Performance. Okay, so maybe you have any best memory or like a funny anecdote from the Olympics, like I don't know, funny story, or just maybe it doesn't have to be funny, but maybe something like your nice memory.
Like funny memories. I like one memory from Torino opening ceremony. I still have in my mind and in my body. Was Luciano Pavarotti doing his concert at the opening ceremony, and he's a great opera singer. He was, and actually it was his very last concert before he died.
Really? Oh, wow.
So you realize you were there singing him, and it won't happen anymore. It's like lucky enough I could experience this. So this was great. And of course, you live in the village with world-class athletes. Some of them were like becoming gold medals. You could take picture with them, wear their medals, and play with them, talk to them. It's always good.
And today, do you consider yourself as a snowboard superstar?
No, I don't consider myself as a superstar at all. I think I'm just the man who was following his dreams. Actually, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of my dreams to take part at the Olympic Games. Yes.
And you realize your dreams. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I made my dreams come true. That's for sure. I'm not superstar at all. Snowboarding is a worldwide a big thing. I think in the winter sports, but in Poland it's not a discipline number one. I think there is like ski jumping first, and cross country skiing and alpine skiing, then maybe snowboarding. I still have lots of fans, hopefully, but I do a regular life at the moment.
Okay. So about the Olympics, what is the best and what is the worst part about the Olympics? Is there anything to improve, and if yes, what?
I think the best is the Olympics. There are like in 2 weeks period, you have world-class athletes, best from all over the world in almost every discipline, and you can watch them competing and cheer for them. So it's yeah, you cannot compare anything to this. Like, you know, there are snowboarders, skiers, bobsled, skaters, everyone same place or almost same time competing together. Opening ceremonies are great. It's a huge show. Sometimes a bit too long, but it's amazing. And being there live and walking around the stadium is also uh, something, a good experience. For example, in Sochi, I was sitting on the other side of the stadium, vis-a-vis me. There was a Putin sitting and watching also same event. Like I'm not a big fan of him, but still he's a big guy in this world.
These guys are snowboarders too, no?
I don't think he's snowboard. And the worst part, I think there's still a bit of cheating involved. I mean, doping.
Yeah.
But the anti-doping agency do what they can to stop it, and it's, I think, less and less doping at the Olympics. So yeah.
Okay. What life is like when you're not on the Olympic events? Do you
What-
already prepare for the next Winter Olympics, or do you prepare for other, as you said before, events, competitions like World Cup, World Championships? How's the schedule between two Olympic events?
So it's up to your plans. What are your plans? But if you set a plan, you would like to go for another Olympic Games, then you have a 4-year time period to prepare for this. And between also you always train and compete as much as possible. So I was like training and competing all over the world for like 4 years, and 2 years before the Olympic Games there were the Olympic qualification process, like usually is starting. So
Okay.
this, like 2 years before the Olympics, is very important. You must take part in the World Cups and World Snowboard Championships. You
Okay.
must collect points, and you must work on your world ranking, because only
Okay.
in snowboarding only 40 best snowboarders from around the world can go and participate at the Olympics.
For 14 of each country, or 14 all around the world overall?
40 total, but maximum 4 from the country.
Oh yeah.
So there won't be more than 4, for example, Americans at the Olympics. Is the maximum from the country, because they want to have this. They want the Olympics to be as much international as possible. So they also would like to give a chance to some other nations.
Yeah, they will bring as much country as possible.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so do you think that Olympics is more like an event that brings countries together or more tear them apart? I mean, about a competition, and is it more something like it's good for countries overall, or maybe like a bad thing?
No, I think it's a good thing. It brings countries together. You can see very often there are athletes from different countries supporting each other, helping each other, cheering for each other, and it's same on the other level. For sure, me sitting in front of TV, I'm always cheering for a Polish competitor, Polish athletes. But in the end, the vibe of the Olympics is just a good vibe. There isn't any bad vibe about the Olympics, so it brings people and countries together, I think.
Okay. During these events, these several events, do you find time, free time, to visit the host country? I mean, the host city, especially.
Host city. So It depends because so it's, for example, in Vancouver there were like two Olympics village. Some athletes were living in Vancouver city and other athletes were living in Whistler city. In Vancouver we were lucky enough the Olympic village was in the city center, so we could go out easy and see the city and enjoy it a bit. But Vancouver and Sochi, we were kind of high in the mountains, so there wasn't really much happening outside the Olympic Village. And of course, I've been to these places also before, so I didn't have to go for any tourist walk.
Okay.
But it's up to person. If someone wants to go and experience the city, it's of course possible to do this, but there are like many things happening in the village or or in the mountains or in the sports stadiums. You rather go and be there and watch this instead of just experience the outside of the Olympics.
Yeah, we see. Yeah, speaking of these kinds of contests, have you ever thought about participating one day or one time, I mean, in the X Games, the Winter X Games?
Yeah, of course, I was thinking about it, and it was a dream of me, of course, to compete at the X Games, but it's also a very, very big sport event, especially for extreme sports.
Yeah.
But the difference is for the Olympics, there is the whole qualification process. There are rules, very clear rules you must to follow, and you must, you must collect the world ranking points and world ranking. If you good enough, if you've done it, you go for Olympics. You're good to go.
So you're telling me for the X Games some rules about
For X Games, it's an invitational contest, so it's up to organization who they would like to invite.
Okay, it's different.
Sometimes Sean White, probably you know him, the very best snowboarder.
Sean who?
Sean White.
Sean White, yeah, I know him, yeah.
Sean White. So one year he agreed with the X Games, and they did not invite him to take part in the X Games.
Ooh.
Okay.
Although he was number one.
Yeah.
And so for me, coming from Poland and competing in America, it's probably not a big thing for them. It's not a big show, probably.
They don't like Europeans.
Yeah, like there are Americans like really, really in front of every other nation.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to have some clarification about your career. In Wikipedia, we find that you participated in halfpipe in Torino 2006, Vancouver 2010.
Yes.
But we see blank cases for Sochi 2014. And
I was there.
Sorry?
I did Sochi Olympics.
Okay, because we have some cases with snowboard cross events and halfpipe events. Did you ever participate in a snowboard cross events? Because we
No, no, it was my brother Mateusz. Actually, I'm coming from the family which is very into snowboarding, and there's me riding halfpipe. My brother was a snowboard cross rider, and also there was my cousin Paulina. She was doing halfpipe as well with me. And actually, my brother and my cousin they were good enough to be invited for X Games, so they did the X Games too.
Okay, and yeah, just a real quick advice about because we have to video about a debate. We did some research about the motorsport, the inclusion of motorsports in the Olympics. In some former Olympiads, like in 1900 in Paris, 1908 in London, and 1936 in Berlin, there were some presentation rallies to promote the motorsports back in the day. Do you think that today, because the president of the Olympic Committee said that they only accept, like they say, athlete sports. Do you think motorsports should be included in the Olympics? Because motorsports are also something physical. They are also a sport, basically. What do you think about that?
Of course, on the one hand, motorsport is a lot about the driver and physics. So when you look at this from this point of view, it could be at the Olympic Games. But on the other hand, it's lots of things which are important in the motorsport depends from the engineering and budget. What do you have? So
The budget is a real big problem. There's one sport though that can counter this argument. It's rallycross. The rallycross is actually the cheapest form of motorsports ever, and it's the most multi-scale. You have to race on qualification heats, short qualification heats between 5 cars each, with semifinals and final heats. It's on a track, closed track, mix between asphalts and dirts. And you have a joker lap to do at one race, every race. You have to take it once every time, or you get a disqualification. The joker lap is basically the deviation of the track you have to do, which is a little bit longer. So just to add some more suspense to the to a race, and it's the cheapest one between every existing motorsports ever, cars or bikes.
Okay.
This kind of sports could be included in maybe not the next Olympics, but maybe in 8 years, maybe.
Are they thinking about it to add it to the Olympic program, or it's your opinion?
It's my opinion.
It's your opinion. So when you look at the Olympics now, it's very busy event. Like 40, 50 years ago, there were like only 30 disciplines happening, and now there's like around 120 disciplines happening also in 2 weeks. So they are busy, and if they want to add a new discipline, usually they cancel some other less popular disciplines. So and also the thing is, does motorsport need Olympics for what? Because Olympics is a biggest thing for most sports, but when you look at the Olympics from the tennis player point of view, or professional golfer or basketball player, they have some bigger goals in their discipline to achieve, like Wimbledon or French Open. If you ask Roger Federer what would he rather win, or some other tennis players, I think most of them will tell you the Grand Slam tournaments are more important, or NBA, basketball league. So, and I think it's also, motorsport is also very, very well organized. And maybe, do you think Formula One teams will switch their priorities instead of winning the trophy at the end of the season?
The World Championship? No. I mean, other than that, the Formula One is one of these rarest sports to be exclusively expensive.
Yeah.
Because of the cars price, the materials price, the research and development process price, engineering. It has a lot of things to do, and so much process to pay, so much materials to pay. It's really expensive. It's exclusively expensive every year. You could say that. Yeah. Other than that, that's only on asphalt. So, to me, a cheap motorsports to organize, cheap materials, cheap cars should be better, and a multitask, I would say, motorsports to show of the people who are not really into that kind of modern promotion to the motorsports. See what cars can do, on a race in a short amount of time in asphalt and in dirt at the same time, racing with each other and adding these joker laps to add some suspense.
So we will see if they add motorsport into the Olympic program. But there are many disciplines also waiting for it, and which would like to become an Olympic sport. Because when you, for example, squash, squash, yeah, playing,
Yeah.
it's not an Olympic sport, and they really would like to become an Olympic sport. And when you are an Olympic sport, then usually your country support the sport a bit more, because for example, squash is in most countries on its own kind of running. But if it would become an Olympic sport, then probably Polish government or Greek government would support this more.
Okay, and that's one of the reasons that the X Games were created in 1998, if I remember, because the Olympic Committee back in the day didn't accept the inclusion of extreme sports first. And then after that, recently now, in, for example, Tokyo 2020, we have now windsurfing, skateboard finally, because before the skateboard was only allowed in the X Games. Then after they understood that this sport was good also and was was an athlete sport, because it was a sport also, even for the surfing events.
Yeah, so I think people who run the Olympics, they have open mind, and they also want to bring best sports into their program, and this will also guarantee them more and more viewers. And so I think they are flexy with the new disciplines on the one hand, but on the other hand, I don't know, you must also look for this as like for a business, I would say. Is it a business, Olympics? For sure it is. There's a lot of money involved. So yeah, I don't know, there are many disciplines which would love to become an Olympic sport. Like this year in Tokyo, what new disciplines we are having? Basketball, 3x3.
3x3. We had surfing, windsurfing, all the sailing events, skateboarding also, and a BMX freestyle, because before there was just the races.
And I think there will be a kiteboarding at the next Olympic Games.
It should be cool, yeah. And I feel it's worth it.
Yeah, should be good. How is Greece doing at the Olympics in Tokyo?
Well, Greece, it depends on the sports. In terms of medal, they have a few. But for example, the last medal I saw them win was a silver or bronze medal in artistic gymnastics with his name is Matthias something. He was doing the full event, so the ground exercise, the beam, the rings, and the bars and the pommel horse.
Wow. Okay. Silver in this. Nice.
Yeah.
Poland is good in the hammer throw, like this year, and also good in running, gold medal.
Yeah.
Running mixed, 2 girls and 2 men's running 400 meters, 4x400, gold. So like Tokyo Olympics began not very well for Poland, but at the moment we are kind of happy with our medals. I think we are having 3 gold medals and 9 or 10 medals total at the moment.
Well, in France too.
Because you are from France.
Yeah. Well, quite good in
congrats for a volleyball game.
Oh yes,
yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Sure. Is Anya there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Or she left?
No.
No. She's still here.
Yeah, I'm here. It's just like motorsports is like not mine, strongest thing. So I'm like,
No,
not
we
even
just
trying to-
wrapped up the topic. So if you want to talk
Yeah.
about something,
I'm not also very into motorsport.
Yeah, I just felt like, no, I'm not, my input would be like invalid. I mean, I don't watch motorsports and I know nothing about it. So, yeah, I just don't feel it.
well, other than motorsports, I really like basketball. If you want to know.
Okay, so who will be in the finals?
Sorry.
Who will play in the finals in Tokyo?
I think it will be France. The USA beat Spain in a semi-final, I think, and we have to beat Slovenia if you want to play against USA again.
Okay, you play against Slovenia, yeah, like tomorrow or day after tomorrow.
Yeah, the team of Luka Doncic.
They're playing well, actually.
Yeah, especially him.
Yeah,
but we have a great team though, with including 3 players in the NBA: Evan Fournier, Nicolas Batum, and Rudy Gobert.
Okay, don't know these guys, but if they in the NBA, it's something for sure.
Well, one of them is from my hometown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
To be honest, I just know that I mean Poland, that we won some medals, but I'm not watching Olympics at all. I mean, it's just like, I don't know, maybe about the timing that it doesn't work with my schedule here, and we don't have like a TV or like.
I mean, if you're working at the same time of the Olympic events, yeah, for sure. But if you're on a vacation and you have nothing to do outside.
But you are not on vacation here.
For the moment, no. But usually I used to watch a lot when I have free time. Olympic events on TV.
Yeah.
It happens in a different time zone, so it's difficult to watch. Usually they start the TV broadcast when I go to sleep around like after midnight, but when I wake up in the morning, I turn on TV and there's still something happening. So yeah, and I also try to watch it's good to watch on the YouTube actually, because
Yeah. You have
best moments from each day actually.
Yeah. On Eurosport channel, all the highlights videos.
Totally. Okay. You also wanted to ask me which Olympics are better, summer?
Yes, exactly. Summer or winter?
That's the question.
So which one?
Yeah.
I don't know. Should I ask just which are better? What do you think? Which Olympics are better? Winter
and why?
Or summer?
Summer. I think Winter Olympics are better because snowboarding is there.
Okay. I mean, I prefer winter as well because like alpine skiing is there, and yeah. I mean, my
She knows a bit about the sports. For sure.
Yeah, I mean a bit.
And hockey is there also. What's funny, in Vancouver, I went to watch a hockey game, Czech Republic against Slovakia. So these countries are, neighbors, yeah, and they know each other. Like the players probably know each other since forever. So they were playing and fighting on the ice rink. But after the game, I went to the back to the Olympic Village. I was a bit hungry, so I went to eat something to the
McDonald's.
And all these hockey players from Czech Republic and Slovakia, they also came to the dining room and they sat together and in the same table and eat and talk together and had fun. Like literally, like 30 minutes after the game, like half an hour before they were like fighting.
Yes.
After they were like, okay, speaking Czech, and that was fun. But yeah, I think Winter Olympics are better in my opinion. But Summer Olympics is fun too.
I would say Summer Olympics because basically I never done any winter sports in my life. I still would like to practice snowboard if I have time. Yeah. snowboard or skiing.
There are beautiful mountains in your country, like
Yeah, the French Alps and the Pyrenees, the Vosges also close to my hometown. A fourth one, but in the center of France, but it's not really that famous.
yeah.
And yeah, we have good winter sports athletes like Martin Fourcade.
Yeah, good snowboarders too.
I had one in mind, Pierre something. He won something in Pyeongchang last time.
Snowboard cross. Pierre Vautier, Xavier Delarue, Mathieu Crepper, Arthur Longo. Candide Tove is a very good freestyle skier, but he never done any Olympics. Maybe you know him. He's very famous from his viral videos, how he ski the world, for example. Candide Tove.
Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, for I don't know. Maybe for these are two cool ambiences. But because I found all the sport I used to practice, so summer sports like tennis, table tennis, basketball, and things like that. Yeah, I would say I prefer the Summer Olympics, and just for the ambience. But both ambiences are good actually. Maybe I would change my advice if I practice at least one summer winter sports.
Yeah.
Okay. No, like I don't know. I think it's fun to watch all these skiers going
Yes,
fast
super
and
entertaining.
crazy.
Yeah.
And, like, falling like there's no tomorrow.
Yes, exactly.
Like bobsleds, like I'm not a big fan of bobsledding at all, but it's also cool to watch like once every 4 years. What else is there? Cross country skiing, biathlon, running and shooting, hockey, speed skating, short track. Okay, it's nice. It's nice.
We will just not talk about curling.
Curling, yeah.
I mean, it's funny. You've ever tried? I tried once. It was kind of fun, but
You found this fun?
I mean, for one the time, yeah, not like doing it on a regular basis, but kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Not sure if watching this is fun, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's better when you practice the sport than watching it. Just watching it.
Okay, and Winter Olympics are also, I think, a bit smaller. There are less sports, less disciplines, less athletes, and
Less categories.
Less categories. And Summer Olympics must be way bigger than the.
There are a lot of disciplines, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So,
Because overall, a Winter Olympic event, how long does it last?
maybe 30 or 40, and Summer Olympics has 120. What I know, I think Summer Olympics are, I would say, 3 times bigger than the Winter Olympics.
And speaking of which, do the Winter Paralympic Games exist? I never.
yeah.
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 What?
Winter Paralympics.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because I only know their existence for the Summer Olympics, but I never had this question before in mind about the Winter Olympics actually.
yeah, there is of course Winter Paralympics and of course imagine there is discipline skiing, giant slalom for blind people.
I know, it's amazing.
For blind people?
Yes.
And how do they drive themselves?
They have a guide in front of them who is kind of contacting with them. I don't know, talking or
like a spotter.
or ringing a bell. So the blind skier is like kind of following what he hears.
Okay.
So it's
they have the force with us with them on their sides. Huge respect to them.
huge respect for sure.
Yeah.
And usually it's very steep and fast. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you something later.
Okay. Okay. No, I didn't know that. Wow. Cool.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think we made the whole tour of the interview.
It will be difficult for you to edit because in between the interview we did some basic regular talk, but maybe you can make it interesting.
We can just cut the the hesitating moments, because I used to edit an old interview just before for my previous episode about basketball. I just had to cut. Yeah, it's a little bit long, but we still managed to work something out.
Okay, what do you do this for? Like,
yeah, the podcast is about sports, music, world news in our way, and world culture. So including world music, world cooking, world everything, basically world culture.
Cool.
Okay, we are here like with an Erasmus Plus project, and we are working in media creative lab, and we have like basically it's like a journalism, and we have our blog, we have podcasts, we have videos, and is there anything else we have? No, I think that's
press articles. We do press articles.
Yeah, something like this. And yes, and of course I'll share the link with you later when we will be like ready to publish that one. And yeah, basically.
Before we leave, do you have a music in mind that we could put in our playlist for the transition?
Oh, I don't know. Like you need it now, or you want to, or you would like to give me?
I would like you to give me an idea.
Till tomorrow. I was at the Olympics in Torino when I was doing my run. There was this song Outcast, I'm Sorry Miss Jackson.
Oh.
Yeah, okay.
Playing. So I did my run through the half pipe, and it was I'm Sorry Miss Jackson. and I was doing tricks because there's always music in the snowboard contests. So this is one.
So Sorry Mrs. Jackson from Outcast, right?
Outcast would be nice, like this kind of song reminds me about the Olympics in Torino, and I don't know what else. Difficult question. I'm into hip hop, actually, the old school hip hop. So
what did you say?
Everything from Nas, hip hop, rap. Everything from Nas, Jay-Z.
Okay, that's cool.
Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah.
It's cool. Mos Def, Mos Def, Traveling Man.
Yeah. Also.
This is a nice song. I was traveling a lot when I was a snowboarder. I snowboard from New Zealand to Chile. Almost, many resorts.
And if you had to choose one from all of these hip hop songs, which one would you choose?
What about resort? One ski resort.
Yeah, so maybe at the moment the Mos Def Traveling Man is the song I would pick, but for sure I have some maybe other. When it comes to music, it also always up to your mood. It's like sometimes this song is best for you and the other is not as good as usual. But yeah, so maybe Mos Def Traveling Man. And best ski resort, I really enjoyed to snowboard in California, in the Lake Tahoe area. Do you know Lake Tahoe?
Yeah.
It's one of the most beautiful lakes in the world, and it's surrounded by beautiful big mountains, and there are really world-class resorts in this area. So it's not like just one resort, but the whole area is very, very beautiful, very attractive, and perfect for all the outdoor sports, I would say, from sailing, wakeboarding to skiing and snowboarding.
So it's actually snowing in California.
Oh yeah, like California is a good state. You can snowboard and skateboard and surf almost one day. Everything, all this one day.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
It's also snowing here in Greece, so
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's snowing in Greece too. It's in my plans actually to go to Greece and experience snow in Greece, but it never happened so far. Actually, I never been to Greece. Actually,
Oh,
I've been to many countries, but
never agree.
never in Greece.
If you can, you should go. This is a pretty nice country.
Where in Greece are you?
We're in Thessaloniki, in the northeast of the
Next
country.
to Olympus Mountain, to be honest.
Yeah,
Okay. Did you go to Olympus?
Not yet.
not yet.
Oh, let's go there tomorrow. Go there this weekend.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But I mean, August is very bad month for traveling because whole Greece have their all Greeks they have their holidays right now, and everything is like super expensive. I mean, to travel around the Greece is super expensive, and no, I mean it's too hard. It's literally like too hard. I mean,
The best way would be to rent a car, basically.
Yeah, rent the car and go there. It's for sure a bit colder at the top of the Mount Olympus.
yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Go there and cool down, and
Yeah.
I believe it must be beautiful for sure.
Yeah. But maybe I'll wait for my father to go together because he's about to come.
Your
Maybe.
father is a nice guy, crazy positive. Always funny.
Yeah.
Say
No.
hello to him. And I'm. It's very nice that he contact us and
Yeah.
my-
Yeah.
for this interview. I'm sure he knows many Olympians, but it's nice. He told about me.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay.
Hey guys, are we done?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're done. And thank you very much for your time today without any technical issues, which is super nice because almost every single day we have something here. I mean, Greece is a super nice country, but with its all features. I mean, yeah, okay, we are finishing, but this is a long story short. It doesn't matter. Okay, thank you very much.
We're gonna wrap this interview up
Yes, and
for the end of this episode about the Olympics with Anna Zukowska and Michal Ligocki. Did I say it right?
Thank you.
Ligocki or Ligocki?
Ligocki.
Ligocki, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I
And
see you
we
here.
are dying. I'm dying. Thank
Bye,
you.
Michal. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the end of the third episode of the track review. It's also the end of the track review podcast. Due to many time problems, we didn't have the occasion to make you 5 episodes. The 4th episode was supposed to be with all the volunteers, and the 5th episode was supposed to be a special one about music, a Facebook Live episode actually, with a Q&A session with you guys and a little guitar performance by myself. But yeah, in the end, I think we will put some music for the transition part here, or maybe a guitar melody if I still have the time to record something here. Just to say goodbye, and I'll leave my place to new volunteers, and because this will be the end of my mission here in Thessaloniki. It was a pleasure to create and to host with you this broadcast, Anna. So yeah, just saying you goodbye, guys, and see you maybe next time in another place of the world. See you guys.
Thank you for this 2 months, Ali, and maybe, I'm looking forward to your live performance, maybe one day on your private Facebook then, or, since you proved your guitar skills, we are still promised to hear that one, and yes, thank you, and hear you in the future.
My pleasure, and see you in the future another time. See you guys, bye.
And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You just heard a recording from August 2021 when I was thinking about already closing this 2-month young podcast. I had to go back from Greece, go back to France, work a lot, and had many stuff to do as well. Besides, came to Poland, and then I decided when I got back to France after a nice Western European road trip with a friend of mine before leaving Europe to continue this podcast by first re-uploading the 2 first episodes from my former organization website to my YouTube channel, and the rest is history. So the next live guitar performance episode will be, I think, performed on YouTube. I'll make a live if I have the time to do something quite interesting, let's say. I can't wait to show this Anna, and I can't wait to show these guys as well, of course. Concerning this episode, you're now reaching the end of Olympian Flexers. I hope you guys liked it really well. The episode was really long. Don't hesitate to use time markers. These are made for that. The episode was long because we had many subjects to talk about and important events and highlights to talk about in this podcast. So these are the reasons why this podcast is long as hell. The next episodes will be much shorter than everything you've known since the beginning of the channel. I will include more international guest interviews and shorter subjects and many other topics. Like I will extend now to personal development, entrepreneurship, finance, economy, a little bit of geopolitics to understand the world that we live in. And of course, I will continue with much shorter motorsport reports, I promise. World news in my way, world culture and music as usual. Michal Ligocki, your wish is granted. We'll now finish this episode with the outro music you've asked during our last interview. Here's guys, Mos Def, Traveling Man. For this outro, just before, I would like to thank Late, the former team I worked with. So thanks to Balkan HotSpot to having been giving me this idea to launch this podcast. Doing radio things is something that I always wanted to do in my life alongside my automotive and motorsports career. So thank you for that. Thank you, Greece. Efaristo Balkan HotSpot. Efaristo Pili. Dziękuję bardzo, Anna. Definitely stay tuned for the next upcoming episodes with new formats. The new era of the track review begins now. Don't forget to subscribe to the Instagram page, _track_review, and to subscribe, of course, to this YouTube channel. All capital letters, the space track, space review. This was Ali DAMPIED, aka the Trackmonger. Hope you guys like this episode. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. See you guys. Goodbye.
Yo, the time to play leaving. Alright, see you at the airport. I'm leaving on the next plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you know I'll never go. Even though you know I will, I'm a traveling man. Moving through places, space and time. Got a lot of things I got to do. But God willing, I'm coming back to you. Oh baby boo, I'm a traveling man. Moving through places, space and time. Got a lot of things I got to do. But God willing, I'm coming back to you. Oh baby boo, I'm leaving. We'll go ahead and leave the call heard around the world from the wise of MCs. These cats is paying more than half a pound. I'm going back and snatch it down. I got the skate, but we could probably run them back in town. Scenarios like this is tear jerkers for the modern MC. I ain't a blue collar worker, cause this thing called rhyming no different from coal mining. We both on assignment to unearth the diamond. When you start climbing and them eyes start shining, you be struggling and striving and they think you prime time and maintain and keep silent. Make no an observation, it's confrontation. This is the daily operation. My concentration, stay focused on my recitation. About to reach my destination with no pause or hesitation. Baby, make the preparation, cause this ain't no recreation. This is pro ball, and we letting you know, y'all, at the show, y'all. Doing this for dough, y'all. Get the phone call, and I'm ready to blow, y'all. About to go, y'all. Been a pleasure to know, y'all. And I'm letting you know I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know if I'll be back again. Kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you know I'll never go. Even though you know I will, I'm a traveling man. Moving through places, space and time. Got a lot of things I got to do. But inshallah, I'm coming back to you. Baby boo, I'm a traveling man. Moving through places, space and time. Got a lot of things I got to do. But inshallah, I'm coming back to you. My baby boo, I'm leaving. But God willing, I'll be back home to drop these heavy ass bags up my backbone. Around the world with the catalog of rap songs. My baby girl is walking, been away for that long. But no, you haven't, well, at least it's how it seemed to me. My hometown is like a whole different scenery. The old timers on the stoop, leaning leisurely. The new jacks up in the park, smoking greenery. Easily taken for granted when you up in it, but it's sweet sinning. When you been down for a minute, move around city limits, break them down with the vintage. The innovating, classical B-boy image, collect the winners. Cause that's the reason that we came here. This thing is not a game here. The fortune, not the fame here. From New York to the Cadillacs, Cali and the Cadillac, Chicago, know we innovate, infiltrate Virginia State, DC make me stimulate, Philly know we penetrate, Georgia make us generate. Let's set a date to get the pace. They celebrate to my jams in foreign lands. Even your mans in Japan know who I am. Son, make everybody out in the pond say itchy bun. Make God man know where you get it from. Phenomenon. Excuse me, that's a phone call. It's a show, y'all. Trying to get this dough, y'all. About to blow, y'all. Been a pleasure to know y'all. And I'm letting you know I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know if I'll be back again. Kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you wait for me. Hold me like you know I'll never go. Even though you know I will, I'm a traveling man. Moving through places, space and time. I got a lot of things I got to do, but inshallah I'm coming back to you. Baby boo, I'm a traveling man. Moving through places, space and time. Got a lot of things I got to do, but God willing I'm coming back to you. Back to you, I'm all aboard.